OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, you're very welcome along. It is Monday morning and it's time for OTB AM. We're here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed every morning of the week, Monday to Friday from 7:30 all the way through until 10. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you can text the show 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, or of course you can also get us on Twitter at OffTheBallAM. Before we start the show and before we get into the performance rankings, we do just want to send our condolences to the Kearns family and to everybody involved with the Offaly senior football team. The news broke last night that Liam Kearns had passed away suddenly, and they issued a statement last night, the Offaly County Board, saying they were devastated to learn of the sudden passing this evening of our senior football manager Liam Kearns. In his short period of time as manager of the senior footballers, Liam made a hugely positive impact and he was extremely well respected by everyone associated with Offaly GA. Offaly GA extends our deepest sympathies to his wife Angela and daughters Rachel and Laura. May he rest in peace. And we'd obviously like to send our sympathies to everybody from Kerry, Tralee, from the Limerick team that really shot to national prominence under his leadership. The Tipperary team, who fairly similarly seemed to overachieve. He was with Laois, and obviously a GA man to the core. Loads of messages coming in from all around the country for the various lives that Liam Kearns has touched, and so we obviously send our best wishes to everybody who is bereaved this morning. But at 7:31, let's get into the performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performance was just lacked that intensity.
Right, it is 7:32. Kenny Cunningham is with us. We haven't gone with the lead here. Kenny, good morning to you.
Not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
No, I thought you were a morning person.
I'm here.
Yeah.
The only part of that statement I agree was I'm here.
Here in body.
Are you not a morning person?
No, I'm all right, to be honest with you, yeah. No, I'm all right in the mornings. This is as good as it gets, actually.
Okay.
Slagging off my yoghurt this morning as well.
We'll be the judge of that, though. How good you are. Don't worry. And the YouTube commenters will essentially decide. They're the ones who'll... before we get into the performance rankings, this is some fairly obvious stuff. Not in the green this morning, apart from an Irish goodbye, the Irish Oscar hopefuls. You weren't that surprised, though?
I'd hoped Barry Keoghan, obviously, and the Irish actors, I thought they'd have a fighting chance, but I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you. No, yeah, it would have been great, obviously, great recognition for them, but no, I wasn't hugely surprised.
You weren't a fan of Banshees?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the film itself, to be honest with you. The storyline, couldn't quite buy into the storyline. We were talking about it there previously, weren't we? I just didn't quite get the buy. I thought it was interesting, the relationship between the two kind of main characters. All those kind of similar intentions around the film was well shot and all that type of stuff. And yeah, but no, couldn't quite buy it. You've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought it was meh. It was like, the film's meh.
Really, lads, yeah?
Film's meh.
Did you like Martin McDonagh's other works?
Barry Keoghan, very good. Well, I loved In Bruges. I thought Three Billboards was decent.
I liked it a lot. Seven Psychopaths, very good.
Seen it.
It's very good. Yeah, it's worth
Went to see Hangman in the Gaiety on Saturday night. I was like, this is much better.
Brilliant.
This is much better. No Paddy Wackery in this. Now, maybe if you're from the north of England, you're like, oh my God, look at all the cliches. But I don't know. So, Hangman worth going to see in the Gaiety, I would say.
Okay.
I haven't been into the theatre in a while. I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, you might be right. I'll keep an eye out.
Right.
Yeah, it's a disgrace. I think they've stung us, the Academy, haven't they? I mean, we were all there going, we're gonna sweep up. It's like,
who did sweep up? Do you mind me asking? Usually
it was
somebody sweeps
Everything Everywhere All at Once has won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. Yeah. I want to say. So it swept up. I think it was 8 awards in total. 7 or 8 awards, I think. So
Brendan Fraser won for The Whale, and I don't know what else. That was basically it.
You said was a short film.
Short film, Irish Goodbye was the winning short film, which is great because that's them all on the path now to massive careers. And I think the fact that Colin Kuhn was there and they've been there all week, who knows where that's going to take everybody involved in that. But they felt comfortable. They looked comfortable. They looked like they were supposed to be there, and they weren't overawed by the occasion. So great for their careers as well. And I think, like, ultimately, you're in
the conversation, Jared, isn't it? As long as you're in the conversation, people
that's all
are talking
matters,
about you. I think it's a win-win to some extent, isn't it?
This is the performance rankings, though. So let's start with. I'm going to run through these. BBC and Liverpool in red, Man United in amber, France and Ireland in the green. We're going to start with the green.
Yeah,
I think
we've only done this on special occasions, but it feels like a special enough occasion that we should flip the whole rules and put Ireland first in green, because it's probably the talking point of the morning. So, I mean, what a performance yesterday. Now, it was tetchy at times, and we got over the line. But, I mean, Mac Hansen, will we start there? What do you say about him? I saw him getting 10 out of 10 in some player ratings yesterday, which was a rare thing to see. But
the player ratings, I think we can all agree the player ratings are now officially bullshit, because they gave Caelan Doris 5, even though he played like 12 minutes and produced one of the greatest moments of athleticism I've ever seen in a field of play from somebody in a green jersey. Like the steal and the subsequent, it was absolutely sensational. So I'm out on player ratings. If someone isn't on long enough for that, and no.
You give Matt Hansen a mark out of 10 then, in your opinion?
Hansen, I don't know. Hansen's a 9 or an 8, I think. But to give Caelan Doris
he's more than
5,
an 8. He's more than an 8, isn't he?
Well, I don't know.
He was near perfection.
He actually wasn't. Nathan Johns in the Irish Times is pointing out that he lost the ball several different occasions. But that's
near perfection.
It's high risk, And I mean, I think Van der Fleer. Is that not a 10 for Van der Fleer? It's like, I'm going to throw the ball in now, and I'm also going to still be the number 7, and I'm also going to then be the hooker at the back of the mall whenever, because I've thrown it. I thought that was ludicrous.
Right?
They were pretty good. Also, Jamison Gibson Park, it turns out, very, 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 very important to the
Brought
team.
a bit of control to the whole thing, didn't he, when he came on? Like, Conor Murray did brilliantly yesterday. But then when you see Gibson Park coming off the bench, you're like, okay, this is good. We have some strength and depth.
I have to say, I think that the single most important thing in all of this is Andy Farrell. Like, so the players are great and the depth is great, but I don't know if you noticed during the week, and we're going to talk about this with Quinny. We've talked before on the show about Ireland got beaten by Scotland. I don't know if you remember this. Scotland scored 2 tries in the first 15 minutes, and then afterwards it emerged that we'd been late. The bus had been late. There hadn't been the right police escort or something. And Joe Schmidt made a big deal of this in the aftermath, and it was like, in fairness, he got his revenge in the World Cup when his Ireland team smacked Scotland down, and I'd say he used that as part of it. But this week, Andy Farrell spoke about, there was one time our bus got delayed when I was a player, and we got changed on the bus, we got warmed up on the bus, and we came out and we crushed a great Leeds team, because we just took it, we took it on the chin. We were prepared for all eventualities, and we welcome that. And all along, anytime one of our players got injured, like, great, somebody else going to get a chance. We thrive in adversity, we enjoy adversity, and then in the midst of everybody's collapsed, Andy Farrell's like, this is what we've trained for. This is it. This is your moment to shine. Yeah. Cian Healy, you get in there and you be a hooker. Now, there's a stroke of genius there in which Bernard Jackman was the only person who I first saw explain exactly what was happening. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But I just think Andy Farrell is he's approaching levels of,
I agree with you, yeah,
emotional intelligence, tactical and technical planning, an ability to take in legends of the game as part of his backroom team and feel emboldened by the fact that he's leaning on them as opposed to, and that they're getting credit. He's not feeling in any way diminished by that. He's not protective. Yeah. I just think that Andy Farrell, this is Andy Farrell's win as much as anything that's ever happened in Irish rugby has ever been associated with one individual. Like, the team was excellent, but it's him.
Yeah, I think he's hugely impressive, every interview that he does, he kind of embraces it, all the pressure like you're talking, it kind of turns it around. We spoke about it before, Sean, I think, didn't we? No negatives there, was always a positive spin, you know what I mean? Always setting targets, setting targets for the players and stuff. Yeah, it's great to see.
Control the controllables, and then when the uncontrollables happen, control them too. That seems to be the attitude he has. Nothing like they were talking about his halftime team talk yesterday. Speech was apparently very inspiring. But they were a disjointed second half, and then you're seeing so many players out of position. You're thinking, this is it. This is adversity. This is a game against Scotland where you have to win to keep the Grand Slam hopes alive. And they just rose to the occasion. Even Jack Conan didn't expect to be playing for that long, and he did brilliantly. Scores his try as well. There's just so many moments in that second half where you're thinking, right, this is brilliant. This is in Murrayfield as well. I mean, you're shutting up the crowd. And by the way, the weekend started with an 82 points to 7 trouncing by the under-20s on Friday night in Scottstown, and that was a sign that all is good in Irish rugby at the moment. I was reading the Scotsman paper this morning, their review of the match, and they're like, clearly there are some things in the Scottish underage systems that we aren't doing that the Irish are, So for that to be transferred then to the senior pitch at Murrayfield at the weekend was fantastic.
So what is that, Shane, in terms of the underage talent? Is that in terms of a bit of everything, like the talent pool is there? There's a quality of coaching, that environment thing, the whole thing from the top down, from the manager we've been talking about there. Does his influence extend his tentacles down into the 20s and beyond?
That's a very complicated question.
It's a bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think primarily it's resource. There are almost endless resources in the schools where these players are part-time students and part-time rugby players from the time that they're in school, and that's producing players who are ready to step up to the Leinster Academy and the Munster Academy, and then when they play for Ireland at under 20 level, they've had like a long period where they've been conditioned
as
to
professionals almost.
You'd have to say your style and the style of play is like very progressive, and so it's capable of dealing with whatever the opposition are throwing at you. So it's not like we have one specific style of play and we're only ever able to do that. So it's definitely multifactorial, you would say.
Yeah.
But the money that is available, because and the IRFU don't have to spend that money, the Leinster branch don't have to spend the money. It's schools that are spending the money, and so there's full-time coaches in the schools at a level that is unusual. Certainly, it's not replicated in many other sports.
Like, by the way, like, it was 82-7, but it could have been triple figures, and Scotland probably deserved credit in the second half for not allowing it to get completely out of hand, although it was fairly out of hand. Like, I was down at the IRFU High Performance Centre in Abbottstown recently enough for there was a press conference with Jack Conan and Simon Easterby, and like that morning, the 20s had played the seniors in a fairly no-holds-barred match, and they seem to do that reasonably regularly during the Six Nations, that they kind of give the 20s an opportunity to test themselves against the senior team. I presume Scotland do that as well, but I mean, I'm sure even like in soccer level, under 21s play the seniors, you'd imagine, fairly regularly. So
even at club football, I remember being in like in the reserves or the youth, around the youth team, you'd step up the first team manager would call the kids over for 11v11 as it would. They'd want to set up tactic, they'd need 11 bodies, and you go up there and be pretty intense, maybe 15-20 minutes you'd kind of go at it, but great experience, for that small amount of time you're on the pitch with the senior pros.
Was that up against Vinnie Jones and Fashnu?
No, I was in my mid-20s by then, to be fair. But no, I just think it's great just to come up against them and just see how they operate, how they kind of carry themselves, and see the level where you need to be, the kind of strides you need to make, all of that type of thing. I know it's only a small thing, but I've watched a bit of that under 20. Didn't see a Friday night now, the other 20s game, but I've watched a couple of them previously. I've really enjoyed it. And almost to the point where you're like, whoa, you're looking out for it, the under 20s game, like, you know what I mean? Generally, traditionally, you kind of stumble upon that type of game, wouldn't you? Yeah. Wouldn't be too much.
Well, there's a Grand Slam decider for them now as well on Friday night, so no doubt that'll be. That's already sold out. I think it sold out weeks ago.
To win a second Grand Slam in a row, by the way, as well, which would be seriously impressive.
Many players. Many we lost. We lost a few players. I was running around yesterday in the game yesterday afternoon. I only caught a bit of the game in town. I met a friend of mine. I said it yesterday, the Man United game was on one big screen, the rugby was on there, a lot of hardy Scots from behind me, he shouted, so it was all a bit of madness in there, couldn't quite focus on either game, to be honest with you.
I think it's still to be decided exactly. In the immediate aftermath, Andy Farrell came out and gave like a list of everything. Ronan Kelleher, it looks like, is gone. He seems to have suffered a recurrence of the injury that kept him out for a fairly significant portion of time, so that would be very worried about that. Obviously, there's no prospect of Gary Ringrose returning next week, so we're still waiting properly for an update on him. He said Doris probably would be okay to play, but again, that's in the immediate aftermath. You've got to wait until today to see how sore he is.
Minimum,
there was already a cast on Ian Henderson's arm, so he's definitely gone. That was a broken wrist. And then there was a couple of others after that who I wasn't sure about.
But would you really? Are you really kind of? I mean, it was a prior to the Welsh game. Was the first game of this thing in terms they were? I wouldn't say dropping like flies, but there's a few key pullouts there. Wasn't leading up, and a bit like you're saying about Farrell, no problem.
Yeah,
not an issue.
Yeah.
It's perfect prep for a World Cup.
Seamless,
you need these things to happen. Like, nothing's going to go well. Nothing's going to go perfectly. In a World Cup.
I think the team who gets the most luck with the injuries in the World Cup is the team who is left standing at the end, largely. Like, if you end up with 2/3 of your first team still available for a World Cup semi-final, quarter-final, final, then you're probably going to be okay. Whereas, if you get unlucky and 5 players go down in one game, and there's already 2 or 3 missing, then you're probably screwed. So I think so. In the green, Ireland, yeah,
100%. And sorry, Robbie Henshaw returning as well.
Robbie Henshaw,
massive.
So, and they're going to absolutely need Robbie Henshaw now next week because Gary Ringrose is gone. Obviously, it was a horrific looking injury that Gary Ringrose suffered. So
Johnny Sexton gets to the equal Rogers points record. There he is holding the centenary quaich. Do any of you know what a quaich is?
Is that some Harry Potter?
That's Quidditch. Close enough though, Kenny. I like your method of thinking. It's actually an ancient Gaelic drinking vessel in Scotland with 2 handles that they apparently hand to the winner of the Ireland-Scotland Six Nations match every year. I mean, that had completely passed me by. But Sexton looked delighted to pick up the centenary quaich yesterday. So yeah, Ireland in the green, I think well deserved. So keep the comments on that win coming in. Also in the green, France. Now, I'm just quite glad that we're not playing France next weekend and that it's England we're playing in Dublin. But France hadn't won in the Six Nations at Twickenham since 2005, and they kind of showed how they're number 2 in the world. A bit of a demolition job on England. 24-point lead at the break, and they run out very, very comfortable winners in the end. Antoine Dupont, Matt Dawson on BBC Radio 5 Live comparing him to Messi, Ronaldo, Zidane, and the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, yesterday. So that's not a bad comparison. Kind of sums up how well Antoine Dupont played in that game against France, or against England. England just weren't at the races. Like the Marcus Smith risk at fly half just didn't seem to work. Conditions weren't great, but 53 points to 10. Bit of an embarrassment for Steve Borthwick and his England players.
Where do you stand, Kenny, on teams coming out and apologising to the fans afterwards? What's your take on... Because they've come out and they've apologised to the... I mean, tickets at Twickenham, they ain't cheap. They're like... The point was that they got so high that people were like complaining about the cost of tickets. Now, the rugby crowd in England, you know, traditionally they paid the money to go to HQ and sing their swing lows, and they were all happy enough with it. But players felt the need to apologise.
Answer your question, I cringe a little bit, to be honest with you. Players and management, to be honest with you, I can understand it. It's an easy one. Gets you a little bit of credit, I think, with the fans. You know what I mean? But no, I do cringe. Fair enough, come out, look, that was unacceptable. And make sure that kind of never happens again. We're going to, knuckle down, and some harsh words will be spoken, and
we're
that's
supporters
unacceptable.
Too. Yeah,
that's unacceptable. We understand. I understand all that, but yeah, that kind of throwaway one in terms of on behalf of the players. We just like to. I'm cringing before I even hear the words, and I've given some abject individual performances like over the years when I played, but. Yeah, I could never quite bring myself to... Yeah, because it's not. You're going out there with the best of intentions, aren't you? And whatever you've prepared as best you can, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. You lose confidence during the game, and, disillusionment, disappointment, all those things kind of set in and affect the performance. But it's never kind of a conscious thing, Ger, isn't it, in terms of, that type of performance, which we've all put in, like individually at times. You know what I mean? You're beating yourself up. You feel as if you've let everybody down, but...
Yeah, it always feels a little bit like I apologise if I've offended you. Do you know? It's like it's not real.
Exactly. It's nothing,
well, it happened on Friday night at Talca Park. Shells 0, Shamrock Rovers 0, and Graham Burke was involved in a bit of a tense exchange with some Rovers fans after the match behind the goal. A few words were exchanged, and some of the Rovers fans were letting him and his teammates know how they felt about the performance, the result so far this season. So
Rovers fans have had like a pretty unbridled period of success.
Yeah, do you get greedy then? You're so used to winning that you can't take not winning. Maybe.
Look, if something got said in the heat of the moment that you're apologising for, that's different.
Yeah.
So I didn't see the Graham Burke incident. I don't know what the outcome of it is. And it's okay for fans to have expectations, but I don't know, this whole England coming out and apologising.
Sorry, Jay, I was going to reference the kind of, just thought of it, the United Liverpool thing, wasn't it? There was a little bit of a commotion afterwards, kind of Varane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On the pitch, made a big
You weren't
thing.
having this last week.
We mentioned, was it last, we were in here, weren't we? And even that for me, it's a little bit like you're saying, I'm sorry if I've offended, dragging the lads that you need to go out and acknowledge and clap the fans, but internally you're like, you're devastated, you're embarrassed by the performance and all, so not going out and clapping the fans. You know what I mean? Someone who goes out and kind of claps the fans, fair play to him, as opposed to the one who's totally devastated in the dressing room, totally embarrassed, feels that type of thing as well. It's not a little bit show. It's show a little bit. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
I'd prefer them to have played better during the game than now be like the ones who are rushing to have the Instagram post going, oh, sorry about that, we didn't quite fulfill our potential today, but we will be back, and other such positive aphorisms.
I never used to, be honest with you. I never remember clapping at any time coming off the football pitch. Very rarely. You probably prove me wrong now. You can Google or YouTube or whatever. But yeah, for that reason, like, you know, that I never wanted that in my head.
When you were captain, though, it's different. Was it different?
Surely at Lansdowne Road, you would have clapped coming off different times. Kenny, I was in those crowds.
I don't remember. No. I've got to be honest with you. Only because of that. You start clapping, then suddenly the week after it's like, oh, he hasn't gone and clapped. Well, that's Kenny,
I was a little kid in those crowds. I was a little kid in those crowds who went there, drove down from Monaghan with my dad.
Thrown that one in a few times, Jerry. He's thrown it out
all the way to the match, and you won't even clap us for coming down and paying for the tickets. My dad worked hard for those tickets. You
know? Show, Jerry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fergus Keogh says, so annoying. We'll soon be expecting people to apologise for not apologising. This is true.
It's just the world we live in, isn't it? Yeah.
And we haven't even spoken about Gary Lineker.
Exactly. We'll get to that. We'll move on because there's some interesting stuff to come in the performance rankings. But in the amber, we'll briefly touch on Manchester United because, they're now 8 points ahead of Liverpool rather than 7 at the start of the weekend. But when you're home to the bottom team in the Premier League and you only come away with a point, it's disappointment, isn't it, really? It wasn't a great... Look, it was actually a decent 0-0. The positive probably coming out of it was Gavin Bazuna's performance. He was brilliant. Arguably man of the match for me. He kept out Bruno Fernandes in the second half with a lovely save to his bottom left, knocked it off the post and went out for a corner. Stopped Varane in the first half at one point as well. Rashford early on too. So Gavin Bazuna's performance would really give you confidence heading into that France game. But from Manchester United's perspective, the Casemiro red card I think was the game changer. He now gets a 4-game ban from domestic action as well because it's his second red card in recent month or two. So I don't know what you've made of the incident, but Ten Hag not happy whatsoever.
What do you mean? What do we make of the incident? Of the most nailed on red card of all time?
I wouldn't call it the most nailed on red card of all time.
Oh, you're allowed to break people's chins now, are you?
He didn't.
That's totally legitimate.
But he didn't do that.
No, I mean it's a complete shin breaker of a tackle. You're not legitimately sitting here as a Man United fan saying he shouldn't have been sent off.
Anthony Taylor gave a yellow card at first glance. That was the referee's on-field decision.
Yeah,
and then the VAR go, maybe, have a look at that.
Yeah,
and then he gives.
We think that's one of the most egregious screw-ups that we've seen from a referee so far. You're going to have to go back and give him a red there, man, because that's idiotic.
Some of the tackles in the Chelsea game the day previous
what a
were
battery!
Worse.
What a battery! Yeah, what a battery! Come on, but was it not a red? Are you honestly saying that wasn't a red?
I think a yellow would have been fair.
Would have been ridiculous. Honestly,
he's over the top of the ball.
He's over the top of the ball, and so how?
Well, he gets the ball and then comes over the top of it.
Yeah, because clearly he's tackled the ball at the top.
Look,
a circular round thing. If you kick it at the top, you're going to springboard like a trampoline. He trampolines off the football into the shit of the player.
Look, it wasn't.
And you're like, oh, he got the ball.
500 games in La Liga, and Casemiro never gets a straight red card, and all of a sudden he's 2 red cards in the Premier League.
Is he phoning it in? Is that your implication?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe the Premier League officiating is different to La Liga. He's not a dirty player generally.
Yeah, I think what he'll find down the Premiership, slightly quicker nature of the football over here. And as good a player that he is, if there's a small weakness in Casemiro's game, is his lack of athleticism in terms of being able to get around the pitch. And I think in certain games he's not going to dominate possession. Manchester United did that Real Madrid team. So defensively, he's going to be exposed a little bit more. Now we've seen the qualities which he has, but at times he's got to get found out a little bit in terms of being able to cover the ground quickly. And what you're going to find with him, you will find those kind of bit of a lunging tackles with him for that reason, because he's not the greatest athlete in the world. And his reading of the game is great. His timing generally of the tackles is very good, a bit like Fabinho, but it has to be, because he hasn't got the ability really to cover the ground, plant his feet and really head in the opposite direction. So it's a little bit all or nothing with him for me at times in terms of his tackling.
I think too you have to bear in mind that with Kroos and Modric, it's like genuinely world-class players that he's playing with all the time. That's not the case at Manchester United until they sign players of a similar standard, and so he's doing more work. He's being asked to do more, and there's going to be instances like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Defensively, he's going to be kind of more exposed, and by and large, I think he's done really well. But I think that's small. I wouldn't call him a massive weakness in his game, you know what I mean? But he hasn't got that he hasn't got that speed of foot like Kante at his best. You know what I mean? Can travel over. Never see Kante on his backside. You know, Jordan is great. He doesn't have to be, because he knows he can cover the distance quick. He can plant his feet and he head in the opposite direction just as quick. So yeah, it's just something that he's going to have to factor in. But I agree with you. I didn't see yesterday tackle, but just saw it there this morning. Yeah, just travelling at that kind of speed, you know, the contact with the ball really becomes irrelevant. Like, you know what I mean? So
it'll be interesting to see if Eric Ten Hag has the Andy Farrell approach of, we welcome the adversity that we're about to face, because it's a 4-game ban now at a key moment in their hunt for top 4 honours, and their record without him so far this season not as good as it is with him in the team.
Wouldn't be great now. So you look at the games that he's missing. So the FA Cup quarter-final against Fulham at home next weekend, and then an away tie against Newcastle, home to Brentford and home to Everton. So the next game he plays will be away to Forest on April 15th in the Premier League. So some key games, as you say, missing for Casemiro. Probably did okay to hold on and get a point, United, considering they were down to 10 men, and there was a bit of an onslaught from Southampton at many stages of that game in the second half as well. So
can we use this as an excuse to... so we're going to do Liverpool next, yeah?
Yeah, we'll do Liverpool next. We'll move on to the Red. Yeah, Liverpool first. So I don't know what you've made of this, lads, but it was just bizarre that a team could go from a 7-0 win the previous week against arch rivals to...
It's about the quality of the opposition, really, isn't it?
What, as in they bring you down to their level?
Step up, really, from last week to this week. Isn't that it?
Shots fired to all United fans out there. Virgil van Dijk's performance was cat. It was brutal. Missed a clear-cut header to... I mean, it was easier to score in the first half. For the goal, for Philip Billings' tap in early on, I mean, I don't know what Van Dijk was doing. The defending was... The offside line was for a start. And then, I mean, he almost left it to... was it Andy Robertson at left back? He just kind of stopped moving. Virgil van Dijk, the body language was not great for centre half. Kenny, I mean, come on. I know you lads aren't the most athletic,
but that's happened previously with him, and it's not an inability. I'm talking about maybe Casemiro lacking mobility. You wouldn't say that with Van Dijk. I know people saying his injury and maybe not quite the same, but still, he's a pretty impressive physical specimen. So yeah, so what you're talking about really is between the ears with Van Dijk, and we've seen it occasionally before with him reared his head. And for me, it comes back to this kind of with him. Probably said it maybe about a year, 18 months ago. With him, the only thing he's got to be careful with is that bit of a God complex which he has in terms of, I'll tell you what, I'm so good that I'm not really sure I really need to bother with the kind of trivial aspects of this kind of defending lark that I'm being asked to do. That was the only thing I looked at and thought, that's the only thing that can maybe cost you going forward.
Yeah.
So I saw a little bit of that in the goal. I saw the goal again. I didn't see the game live, and the goal rolled in, and I was looking again thinking, oh my God, what's going on there?
Why is he stopped?
Yeah, so basically, what that is, I mean, he's got himself back goal side. He's the deepest defender. All he's got to do is stay in contact with the Bournemouth play, you know, shepherd him away from goal. He's got the speed, doesn't have to dive in. It's pretty basic bog standard stuff, you know, show him on his right side to the touchline, block the cross if you can. But you're right, he's kind of it's almost as if like, I can't be bothered. He saw Robertson in his peripheral vision. Robertson's not in a good position. He's 5 yards ahead of the ball, like, you know what I mean. But he's thought, I can't be bothered. You go and deal with that. And even then, like, you know, no intensity to get back to recover back into the penalty box or anything like that. He almost disappears out of the picture, doesn't he? So yeah, that's a mentality thing, Shane, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what 100%.
I mean? It was attitude as well. Like,
exactly. The whole thing rolled into one.
Bit of complacency, and then the Mo Salah penalty, of course, that could have changed the game if that goes in, and Liverpool probably go on to win the match. But I mean, terrible penalty. Jesus.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not even buying the terrible penalty. I was watching it from behind, and it was so sweetly struck, that penalty. Did you see the trajectory of it? I mean, you're talking probably 2 or 3 inches when it went past.
Is it possible to sweetly strike a penalty that goes wide and over?
The pureness of the strike. Yeah, right. Absolutely. The direction he set it out too wide, obviously, like, you know, but if, you know, a foot to the right, and that's like rattling in the stanchion in the net. But yeah, I mean, obviously that wasn't the issue in terms of the penalty kick. I mean, the Liverpool performance, a massive drop off, but you know, that's been kind of the season, isn't it, for a number of teams, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Tottenham and one or two wonders. In Manchester United might start experiencing a bit of that over them maybe next 2 to 4 weeks in Casemiro's absence. It's been a funny old season, particularly top end.
The top two are obviously separating themselves, and like that's only to be expected. But there was like a brief period where Manchester United might have got themselves back into the title race, and then that's just clearly not the case now. So that race for fourth, Manchester United have 50 points, 26 games played. Spurs have a game played more and 2 points less, but they are in fourth. Newcastle have 2 games in hand on Spurs and are 4 points behind. and Liverpool have a game in hand on Spurs and are 6 points behind, and that's really it in terms of who might still make fourth. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be, because you can't hang your hat on anybody, and generally you think the team who can put a run together, momentum tail at back end of the season, who can find those 5-6 consecutive wins, will probably be the ones that. But you're looking at the moment, maybe nobody will. None of those teams you've mentioned there, they might just all limp towards the tail end of the season. I think Newcastle are an interesting one. Got the win yesterday. They play United, isn't it? I think it's the first game after the international break. That's going to be a massive game. I think they go to Forest next week, Newcastle. I wouldn't rule them out. I think they can kind of come again as well.
All right, last one is in the red is the BBC. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I think everything has been said. Really, I don't know if there's anything more. It looks like the BBC are going to roll back. It looks like Gary Lineker is going to be back presenting Match of the Day's coverage of the FA Cup next weekend. It looks like they're going to make some changes to their social media rules. Armando Iannucci was suggesting yesterday, why doesn't Lineker just add these are my views, not the views of the BBC, and the BBC could apologise for overreacting, and away we go. Rishi Sunak was making some kind of peaceful sounding noises about the BBC should really sort this out. The important thing here is, of course, the central issue, and he's right. The central issue is that anyway. Let's not get into that. But
Sunak was asked, and he was on the plane heading over to San Diego to meet with the US president, and he was asked, like, are you going to meet with Gary Lineker yourself? And he said it's not about any one person, but it kind of is.
Well, certainly the BBC made it about one person, and then his colleagues stepped up, and it turns out
I think Gary Lineker makes it about himself, to be honest with you, a lot of the time. I have to say that. I mean, I don't follow social media, but obviously I'm made aware of the fact he's pretty much got an opinion on pretty much everything that's going on of a social nature. So I think when somebody does that for me, it gives a bit of an insight into the mentality of that particular person and their ego as well when they put themselves front and centre. So I would add that as well. I think he is entitled to his opinion. I understand there's issues there in terms of the impartiality of the BBC, which is a joke anyway, to be honest with you, to suggest there's some bastion of impartiality. But I'd reserve the right of anybody to have an opinion, even if they're talking absolute nonsense, which I think he was.
Right. OTB AM, live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. I disagree with everything Kenny just said, by the way, but we don't have time because it's time for us to get into the rugby. It's 2 minutes past 8. We're going to take a quick break. Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. New Braeburn locations are popping up every month, so visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. Up next, Alan Quinlan.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. The Koigig Pod.
I wouldn't even look at them. I wouldn't even prepare to play against them, because you don't know what you're going to get. We could beat them 6-0 or we could lose 6-0.
Pre-season, I haven't been broken by it yet, so ask away. Shamrock Rovers, even though they're a new club, based on pre-season, you'd be looking at them.
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now.
The Heineken Champions Cup is back. Leinster take on Ulster in the round of 16, Saturday, April 1st at 5:30 in the Aviva Stadium. Join the Sea of Blue for this massive inter-provincial clash. Tickets on sale now at leinsterrugby.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, Alan Quinlan's with us. Alan, how are you?
Very good, thanks, yeah.
That was pretty good.
It was unbelievable to be honest. Given everything that went wrong, I think that's going to be... I just think the composure and character this side is an example to anyone in sport. I love the fact of Farrell saying they're laughing and joking inside. Well, they weren't like... They were kind of laughing at the craziness, I think, of everything that was going wrong around the injuries. Ireland were still 8-7 up at half-time. People forget that. And Scotland were always going to come at them. I think there was loads of kind of hairy moments that are really important for sports people. You'll know this, Kenny, as well. If you're under the pump, that's the time where you need kind of wise heads, control, composure, big moment.
And something to go your way.
Yeah, and like when things are going wrong, you lose Doris. It's a blow. Jack Conan comes on, brilliant, great player to come on. Then Henderson is gone. Then Sheehan was gone next. Your hooker, you think, right, Ronan Keller, brilliant replacement to come on. And then Henderson goes, and you're going, Jesus, this is getting crazy, because it's
Peter Marty's going to have to play the full game, and
you don't usually see, you don't usually see that. Like, big players will get injured in big matches in sporting teams, but for that to happen, and then you have the Ronan Kelleher having to go as well, and what happened with Josh van der Fleer having to throw the ball, Cian Healy coming in at hooker, which is really important to clarify. I think most people realise now that, if you go back to the Italy game last year in the Aviva, Italy had nominated their prop as a hooker. So when he comes on, after the first hooker got injured, the second guy sent off, they've got to bring on a front row. He's not nominated as a hooker, so they have to go to uncontested scrums and take a player off.
So they went down to 13 men.
So on the team sheet yesterday, Cian Healy's name would have been down as a hooker, replacement hooker as well, extra cover. So that's why he can come on, do that job. It's just crazy. I thought now in that second half, when you see Josh van der Fleer going to take the first throw in the line out and Ronan Kelleher still on the field, this wasn't like some new trick that Andy Farrell is up his sleeve. There's trouble here. They were buying a little bit of time because I think Cian Healy was doing some stuff with John Fogarty, which he said after the game, trying to get his head around what he had to do, and a couple of reminders. But it was sensational, to be honest, and it's right up there with one of the best wins ever.
Healy actually gives away, is it a free kick when he doesn't, and Bernard Jackman's writing about this again today.
They're creeping a little bit in that scrum.
Well, there's like you have to put your foot forward, and then he's like, oh yeah, it's just I've got a million different things to do. This is not unconscious. I have to be totally conscious. Like, okay, the whole of lads on either side of me here, and they're going to. It's like an incredible feat of physical achievement for Healy to be doing this, and it also means now Cian Healy's not just going to the World Cup. He's going to be in most matchday squads and the big games for us, right? Because this could happen again.
Yeah, and that's, you can't have every eventuality covered. I'm thinking a lot of teams, and particularly after that Italian game, teams have kind of worked on this and made sure you can imagine 2 of your hookers gone, and then a guy is to come off the field, on the field, and it comes uncontested and you have to take off one of your back rows, so it's another hammer blow. So it's very important that, and I'm sure lots of the modern rugby teams at the top level will have that covered off, but it's unbelievable, really. I can't say enough about this team. I know we'll still get it back in our faces probably at the World Cup.
Well, whatever.
But I just can't genuinely, Ger, and you go back to 19 and it was all over the shop at times there when we were very much wondering where is the form of 2018 gone. This team have just grown. They've answered so many questions. So many things have they've been tested, and the preparation for the World Cup for Andy Farrell has gone perfectly because there's lots of big players missing for these big games, and they've been able to cope, and it's a great sign of the team. Let's hope they can keep this momentum going forward.
Yeah, they need bodies back. There's a couple of issues, I suppose, in terms of the injuries. Farrell said that Ronan Kelleher's injury was a recurrence of the lack of power.
It's a big worry.
So that
was a problem he had, I think, with a nerve in his shoulder or neck.
Kind of heartbreaking for him because it looked like he was back. And
he looked in great condition and strength. So that is, very worrying. So, obviously you got through the match yesterday. You have 6 days to turn it around and play England. But there's a lot of, aside from the bangs and knocks that you will have from a very, very physical game like that, then you have these guys, a number of them ruled out. Gary Ringrose will be gone, Henderson will be gone.
Brian Baird comes in. Who goes to the bench on the back row?
Well, if you look at
the second row.
If you look at the second rows who were picked, it was Tyg Furlong, Ian Henderson, James Ryan and Joe McCarthy. They were the 4 second rows that were picked. Joe McCarthy is gone with a broken foot. Furlong's gone, broken foot. Henderson's gone now, broken hand. We think it's a hand. So there's 1 second row standing from the original 4. That's James Ryan.
Burns gone, sorry, yeah.
Ryan Baird was in the squad.
Yeah.
He was in as a back row. So Ryan Baird obviously will start. I think Treadwell is probably the one who was involved last year. But this is a chat I was having last night with someone, is who's next in line. I think... Can you name the next second row?
Not really at this stage.
Jean Klein for me should be called up, and I don't know, maybe we'll hear something today, but he's been playing exceptionally well with Munster consistently for the last 4 or 5 months. He's faced, battled, hardened. I'm not saying he should come into the match day 23, but they need extra bodies in.
He probably is.
But if you look at the other provinces, who else comes in there?
Maloney, but they obviously haven't.
Maloney,
They haven't given him an opportunity.
Maybe he will come in as well. They could bring in 2 or 3 of them.
I guess what you do is you bring everybody in now for the next week and a half and see.
Yeah.
Like, there's a good chance we might need one of them for the World Cup. You'd hope that it's a pity Joe McCarthy, obviously.
He would have been probably next in line to go onto the bench, but he may put 2 back rowers on the bench. Who knows? I don't know, but hopefully Kellen Doris will come back. I think England is still going to be a very tricky game for him, even though they were desperate on Saturday against France. But I think the mental side of this isn't a one-off either, Ger, that they've had adversity and they've been under pressure.
I did want to talk to you about this, right? Andy Farr brought up the bus journey during the week. We've talked about this famous bus journey to the Scotland game a couple of years ago under Joe Schmidt, and you were like, no, it matters, this stuff matters. And Andy Farr's like, yeah, when that happens to us, we revel in it. We get changed on the bus and we get ready to go. And he started the game against Wigan. I was making the case that Andy Farrell at the moment is like, his performance is a genuine world-class coaching performance that is as good as anything we've ever seen in Irish
sports. You can imagine, Ger, if you create an environment where you're literally kind of downplaying stuff that goes wrong and saying, look, lads, it doesn't matter.
Or enjoying it.
Yeah, and kind of, embracing it and using it, flipping it over and saying, isn't it great? Sit back, lads, in the bus, relax. It doesn't matter if they're going to have to wait for us. They can't start the match without us.
Well, get warmed up there, lads.
I was just saying that if I heard that from my head coach, I would go, do you know what? Let go of all the tension. If nobody's saying nothing and the bus is
Whereas
stuck.
if you're standing at the front of the bus, you're going, what is going on? It's just like, I'm just saying.
I don't think Joe was standing up in the bus. But he was probably
he's definitely not happy.
Going in and out and talking to the liaison guy that was there.
I just thought it was interesting that he literally.
Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? So when it happens once, you have the ability to say, lads, do you know what? We let go of these kind of negative things. I don't know what you think if you were in the bus and you've all your prep done. I like being on time and being for that situation. And
I just think it's interesting the difference.
But once you're
between
not on time, though, isn't it? That's
current head coach and the former head coach. The current head coach sees those things as like, it's an opportunity for us to prove ourselves again. The last one was so in.
Well, Jack Cohen said it. He said that he more or less said that the coach said, look, if we turn up 10 minutes before kickoff, we'll just go out and do our job as normal, and like we'll deal with that. So like they're getting lots of opportunities to bank these setbacks. They've certain players have stepped up against Wales, against France. We're missing a lot of big players there, and they stepped up. So the depth has increased. The second row depth now is going to be really tested, and that's an issue and a problem. But I think mentally they're in a good place.
Can we get carried away with this team? Like we ordinarily, if we're going to,
I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, we should do. We should do.
But ordinarily, as an Irish nation, we don't get excited because in a World Cup year, we don't want to win the Grand Slam, do we? The pressure.
I've changed my mind on that now. Now I want to win it.
I hope so.
Let's fucking
I do think. Sorry, we should talk about France, and we will. We don't have a lot of time.
If you asked me, Shane, at the start of the season, would it be good for us to have a few poor performances? Even in November, I thought it was good that we beat South Africa. We were poor against Fiji, poor against Australia. And I thought even Australia probably should have won us. Would it have been the worst result? No, it wouldn't. It would have been a bit of a reality check.
What if we beat France by the score that they beat them by, or beat England by the score France beat them by? There's an element then of, Jesus, where?
No, I don't think so. I think they're comfortable with dealing with being rated the best team in the world. And I think it's only now that people are really saying, wow, to be fair. So I think we should celebrate it. We'll keep saying the point that no matter what happens, it's most probably going to come down to one performance that you need to have a 9 out of 10 performance to win a quarter-final at the World Cup against either New Zealand or France. Given that's if we come out of the group, Scotland are still going to be tricky. So no matter what they do, so should they kind of go, well, we'll lose a few matches and we'll play this down, we'll keep it low-key, we'll go in underdogs. I think they should embrace this, and I think they are embracing it. They're embracing it in a very humble way as well. They're not being cocky. They're not like, we're just going to turn up because we were brilliant last week. They had to dig yesterday so hard at times against a very good Scottish side, a different Scottish team, and that's not patronising to them. They'll still be very dangerous at the World Cup. I just think, you look at the way they stretched France, Scotland in Paris, could have won that game. They beat England. Okay, we're looking at England now, and maybe they're poor, but they demolished Wales in Edinburgh. So they're a different Scottish side, and given all the players that went off yesterday, now they lost Richie Gray
straight away, and
one player, but I just thought this team are very mentally. They're mentally in a strong. And they're quite humble as well.
Shouldn't we get carried away? Isn't that the whole point?
Live in the moment. Live in the moment, Ger. Let's live in the moment.
Come on, let's be having.
Just think of the other side of the
Have
group.
you come around, Ger?
We're still in form, and the World Cup is the next thing that's going to happen. Really, no matches matter between obviously next week, and then there's no international matches of meaningful consequence in the warm-ups. So that's it now. We're in form going into a World Cup. It's good.
Yeah, it is. Really
hard to say negative in that. It's hard to say negative in that.
The French situation, where they obviously got a short, sharp shock from us, and then again from Scotland, but their form is back now, and their best players.
Yeah, they were sensational on Saturday. And look, that's always going to be the case in France. They will rightly be the favourites for the World Cup.
Yeah.
And
so we want them to hammer the All Blacks, and then us play the All Blacks in the quarterfinals. If you were to pick a path, we have months to do that. In the past, you potentially talked about Edwin Adogbo being a flyer. He's just back from injury, coming back from injury in the next week or two.
Yeah, he hasn't played, obviously.
So he needed to have played the whole way through.
It would have been, if he had a run of matches from
September, October.
Yeah, and played most weeks with Munster. I know they had their breaks, obviously, in between the internationals. You couldn't rule him out of being called up, and even to train with him, to learn. Obviously there's a fair bit to learn. In this, at that level, and all the finer details that you've got to get right. But yeah, he's too young for that. Like someone like John Klein, I think, has improved, as I said, a lot. There'll be a few comments afterwards about this and John Klein in the World Cup, but if you watch what he's been doing the last few months, his skills have improved. I think he's offloading the ball, he's passing, but he's a perfect guy who will just hit rucks all day for you, make carries, very physical, and is super fit at the moment, and I think if you were picking the next in line.
All right, well, everybody that has gone into the Ireland squad has got better. Everybody.
Yeah, he's improved a lot as well. I think been better coaching that he's getting now around his detail and what he has to do. And I think that's one. We're talking about the players a lot here. I think we're blessed with the coaches which Ireland have at the moment. They continuously, and I know when you're winning, and you know this, Kenny. If you're winning and the buzz is good, everyone's going to be patting everyone on the back. But what Farrell has done is remarkable. I think he's created a real positive environment that he nearly enjoys. And I know we keep mentioning this. He was like that as a player. He was just this fella the type of fellow who would just turn up, throw a pair of boots at him, and he would go out and just do what he had to do. He in a relaxed manner, but a fury with it.
Yeah,
he's created an environment where these guys are just very happy in themselves. He's very humble in a sense that he knows sport inside out, that you can get your backside handed to you the week after if you don't have your head right. I think he's got a brilliant balance in that. The Irish forwards, again, James Ryan is talking about, because I get criticised for being biased about Paul O'Connell. I know what O'Connell is like. Phenomenal attention to detail. What he's doing with those Irish forwards, and John Fogarty and Mike Catt and Easterby as well. But I know the finer details about defending mauls, your body position at breakdowns, your clean-outs, all that stuff. Paul has taken this team to a different level. And look, James Ryan is coming out talking about that. Okay, he's asked a question about the forwards coach, but you can see so many small intricate things about what they're doing and the way they're executing and delivering ball and stuff like that. So it's good at the moment, but I'll be still half glass, half empty come the World Cup, and so nervous, and the players still in me that I'd love if we were on the other side of the draw.
Look, if we're on the other side of the draw,
it's crazy.
We'd be counting our chickens on the other side of the draw.
Wales, England on the other side, Australia, you know. But look,
like Wales and England,
Australia could come good at the World Cup now. To be fair,
it's Australia, Argentina from that side, right? Can Argentina come out on that side?
Yeah.
I mean, that's Wales and England aren't coming out of that. England, like we were talking about it earlier, coming out and apologising afterwards. You're like, oh my god, what's going on?
Incredible.
Would this have happened if they'd kept Eddie Jones?
I think it was coming. Yeah, it was definitely coming. They were unhappy. An awful lot of players talking about the way he was talking to people and the regime and all that. And you know what? That got him to a point of, again, when things are going well and you have this kind of strict regime and everyone says, well, it's working, we're winning, the added bonus of performance is there. But when things start to unravel a little bit and you've the coach keeping the players out doing contact for an hour and a half and long training sessions and people are nervous and fearful of the head coach, and I've no doubt Eddie Jones is actually, you know, for all the kind of chat he would have pre-match and post-match, and he's actually a really nice fella to meet and have a chat but I think he goes, he kind of coaches one way in a sense that, you know, it's all about, you know, there is a bit of fear involved there, and sometimes people, they weren't enjoying it because, you know, player power is massive. You probably see it's certainly evident, Kenny, in the Premier League, if the players turn on the coach, and I think there was a bit of that happening. Obviously the results weren't going well. It was a pity the way it ended, but I thought they needed to change. I think Steve Borthwick, Nick Evans, Kevin Sinfield, these guys, they need time. There's actually a very good core group of English players, and there's a lot of quality there. But I think they're miles off knowing their we're talking about Ireland's detail and the small things. They're miles off being really cohesive. Will they come to Dublin and smash Ireland on Saturday? Absolutely. They'll make it really difficult, and their line speed will be very, very quick, and they'll be getting stuck into Ireland. They could unsettle them. They're very much capable of doing that. But they need time, you know. They need time to coach and implement an attacking kind of structure. But they were dreadful on Saturday. France just blew them away with everything, every part of the game. And to be in Twickenham and just kind of see English fans leaving there, very, very kind of, there was a good bit left in the game, and they were leaving.
Booze at half
They
time.
were humiliated, yeah. And they're a very poor side at the moment. Will they get better? Yes.
I feel really sorry for them. It's terrible.
Stay humble, remember.
Is there no, not the England game. No, we don't need to be humble about this.
No, but hold on. Like, is there an argument so that the occasion this weekend gets to the players? Because Paddy's weekend, England, I mean, the last two Grand Slams have been.
We're going to hammer them
away from winning the Grand Slam at home.
We've just been talking about why it won't get to them. We've just been talking about why it won't.
Do you know what Andy Farrell would probably say to the Irish players this week? If we lose on Saturday, what odds? End of the world. Sure, who cares? We'll get up Sunday. We'll just go out and do our best. And honestly, that's kind of the messages you're getting back here. Of course, it's big, and it's. I think the players will realise they weren't just kind of giving that talk yesterday that England are going to turn up. Like, if I'm a player there, I'm thinking straight away, what would you do if you're an English player on Saturday and you're going to Dublin? We've spoiled their party a few times going for Grand Slam.
They're fragile. They are. Initial period when you come out onto the game for them, 10 first 10, 15 minutes. But I think very quickly, for the reasons you've said in terms of the
quality comes out after a while.
They have, you know, they'll get a
like
sense
Croke
of that
Park.
pretty quick.
That's what it's going to be like.
The quality comes out, but
you're going to hammer them.
You see, the other thing that hasn't really happened to Ireland is performance has dipped to a really low level, which is potentially can happen. A team that's winning matches, you lose form.
But that's mentality, really. That's a mentality shift when that kind of performance level drops, really, Alan, isn't it? Which you can't see.
Probably,
can you?
Yeah. They're in a good place, and they seem to have all the boxes covered that this could happen, and it's making them avoid that. So look, I think they've been.
So there could be an early red card for an Irish player. There's been no yellow cards all tournament, so it would be a bit of a freak. We didn't even get into the refereeing performance yesterday, and I know you got to go. But next Monday, you're going to do the performance rankings with us.
Yes.
Just green.
Well, on Liverpool. Liverpool going to get mentioned.
We should get carried. Andy Dunn said last week, 10 to 15 points. We're going to beat the Scots. We're going to do them, and we did. 15 points.
Yeah.
Let's get carried away from this weekend as well.
Yeah.
Go on.
And,
did he say?
And Shane texted me then on Saturday on my way to Twickenham. Bournemouth 1, Liverpool 0.
No, it was just it was a photo. It was a photo of a can of 7-Up cherry. Because
fair play. I have to take it. We have to take it back in the chain after last Monday. I gave me a can of 7-Up last Monday.
Everybody's going to remember the 7-0 literally forever. It is a forever result. That 1-0 defeat doesn't matter.
This is coming from a Villa fan now, so it's not coming from me. There's no bitterness here. Thanks, Jared.
24 minutes past 8 this
They'll
morning.
always remember it.
Villa on the charge.
Phil Thompson's up next. Andy Farrell and Johnny Sexton here reflecting on Ireland's win. Thanks, Goody.
Cheers.
It would be stuff of dreams, really. What you grow up doing, wanting to do. I don't know why you grow up wanting to be captain of Ireland. Maybe because the players that you admire most were captains, but to do it would be dream come true stuff. Even just playing for Ireland to win a Grand Slam would be something. So look, it's going to be a big week. There'll be plenty of hype. There's going to be lots of distractions, tickets and family and all that, and we need to really just get down to business and get a big performance, because these guys are going to be really tough to play against, because they're going to be hurting from yesterday. They're going to be wanting to show what playing for England means to them, and they're a good team. They're a better team than they showed yesterday. So it's going to be a really tough game.
And Andy, it is such a short turnaround, and obviously all the injuries as well, so it's a tough task.
Yeah, we're on the plane tonight, so there'll be not much celebrating. We'll enjoy each other's company tonight, flying back and then straight back into the cars and house, and recover properly tomorrow. A few down days to make sure that we get our legs back, and we'll have a hit out or two, and we'll get our plan together and go again. It is what dreams are made of, like Johnny was saying, to play England at home, to earn the right to take it to the last weekend on Paddy's weekend. It doesn't get any better than that. So we need to get across our work early and make sure that we in the right space come Tuesday, Wednesday for training.
It was obviously difficult for Andy Farrell playing against his son. Hopefully his son doesn't get picked again for the game next weekend, and it's much easier for him to channel his general sense.
Be so awkward at home, wouldn't it?
His Christmas dinner would be a bit. There was a good bit where last time they were playing, Owen Farrell said that Andy had bought, or Andy's mum and his wife had bought an Ireland shirt for his kids. So Owen Farrell's kids were walking around in Ireland shirts. It was like, hang on a second. Of course, hopefully his uncle's going to play for Ireland too. But we'll see. It's just an extra little wrinkle to the whole thing, that you forget that there's like an Englishman coaching against his home team.
Yeah. I don't think that's a factor at all, is it? For the reasons that we've been talking about, that manager we've got is absolutely phenomenal. I agree with you, Joe. I think we're absolutely going to annihilate this next week. I have to say it. It's no getting away. We shouldn't be embarrassed by it.
When you say annihilate,
how can you make an argument for this England team at the moment, trudging up at the Aviva last week? I don't care what 15 we put on the pitch. Doesn't matter to me. That kind of crowd there, I mean, the energy level
feels
inside
like
that stadium.
Yeah.
Ger, are you with me?
I am absolutely.
When you say annihilate, what, 30 points?
Oh, we will score 40. I don't know how many they're going to score.
It doesn't really. I think performance, so it doesn't matter. It could be 30, it could be 20, 30, 50. It could be. I think we're just going to absolutely swamp them.
I'm loving this.
But that's not jingo. That's. Am I right with that one?
Well, on the balance probability on the form lines, Ireland are 15 to 20 point favourites.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I haven't
15
checked.
to 20?
Well, that's what. I mean, that's a lot.
First
Kenny.
half.
That's three tries. Right. 28 minutes past 8. Keep your comments rolling in. It's time for us to turn our attention to Liverpool. Phil Thompson is with us. Phil, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Not bad. Could be better.
What the hell is going on?
Absolutely no idea. And it's lovely, isn't it? You always think as a player, as a coach, that you've got ideas about where it goes wrong, what's happening. You have your opinions. And we got to the World Cup and you were thinking, oh yeah, I think I know what it is. It's the press. The press is just not working. And in fairness, Mo Salah came out, I think it was just before or just after the Man United game, and he said it was the forwards who they were not understanding or doing the high press. But I thought I think everybody is out of form. I think that is one of the big things. The new players trying to integrate them into the side, Darwin Núñez and Gakpo, with that press. But I think it's just loss of form in so many players. But Saturday was all about complacency. And that was it. They thought, after all the hype of the Man United game, we just need to turn up. Kenny's there with you. You know, you have a game like that and you perform and everybody's talking about it. And the next week you go out. And if you're not right, if you've not got that in your mind, you can soon come unstuck.
Complacency? Was that an important element here, Kenny?
Yeah, I think Phil's right, but I think there's certain fundamental issues in that Liverpool squad. Been there probably for about a season now. Phil will probably say more Liverpool games than me. You can kind of nitpick around the edges, but for me, it's always been for the last year that kind of central midfield area for me. That kind of access in there. Henderson's legs, unfortunately, not the player he was. Can't get around the pitch like you had done previously. They've never replaced Wijnaldum. Phil, in my opinion, that central midfield. Fabinho now is getting more exposed. A lovely player that he is. He can't shift over the ground, you know. So he's getting more exposed than he's ever been. And likewise the back four, you know, that back four unit now is getting exposed. We haven't got that defensive shield, Phil, for me, in front of them now, and they're really getting stress tested how good they are individually as defenders, and we're seeing them exposed a little bit. So there's a lot going on there. But you're right, a bit of complacency absolutely yesterday doesn't help, but I still feel there's underlying issues there, Phil, which the manager isn't going to resolve until the summer. He's only going to fix this, Phil, for me, by actually getting some top quality players into that club in the summer.
No, there's a lot of that, right? But don't forget, I think where the problem with the defence, we're not being defended well. I'm not trying to say that they're all right, but if you don't get that press right, and you don't get it right, and our press has always started from the front. I get you think about Wijnaldum, but Wijnaldum wasn't there last season when we were going for 4 trophies right for the very last day. So, you know, and things were really good last season. So the drop-off has been quite immense, the way it's happened. And you could go with Mane rather than Wijnaldum. But don't forget, Wijnaldum's age was going up as well. And that's the difference. We've got like young lads in Carvalho and Elliott and Curtis Jones who are between 21 and 18. And then we've got 30-somethings. And the gap is too big. Now, you keep doing the high press and the intensity of the closing down of what Jurgen demands from the players. There's going to come a time when you're going to hit that brick wall. And I feel as though this season has been that brick wall for those ones who are a little bit older. And you can't get around. You see players who are not able to pick the feet up to make challenges, make passes, and it's just not happening. So that area in the middle, you're quite right. I'm not agreeing with the Wijnaldum thing, but the press starts from the front with Liverpool. Now, if you're not stopping and players are able to get their head up and see that pass, and it's happening time and time again, players have just been able to put the ball in behind our defence. We're still holding that high line, and you're getting done every time. I've never seen Alisson, of all the years he's been there, have to make so many crucial saves as he's done this season. It's only in the last few games that things were getting a bit better. Maybe they've been working on the press. But to come unstuck again like it was at Bournemouth was just, honestly, it was a shame. Because like you think you're turning that corner. We turn more corners than Lewis Hamilton this year.
Phil, can I ask you if you think that this is an issue that will be fixed with a couple of signings? Rumours yesterday in the papers about Mo Salah's future and whether or not they'll decide to cash in on him. You know, he's still obviously incredibly valuable. His goal scoring this season is excellent. So there would be a big market for him and they could get loads of money back. But is this something that can be fixed? Is the new reality that Liverpool are way off competing for the title, or is this a couple of signings, an off-season, and they're back again?
I would like to think a couple of signings. And listen, yes, I get the midfield thing, and so many Liverpool fans, Jude Bellingham has come into Liverpool. And I'm telling people, don't, you know, I did what's called Legend Source at Liverpool. You got 50 people in the room, and I said, how many people think that we're signing Jude Bellingham? And about 48 all put their hands up. And I've went, listen, I would love them to sign. I says, but you've got to get it, because it'll be the biggest letdown of any transfer window that will ever happen if Liverpool don't sign Jude Bellingham. And there's going to be so many options for this young man that it's going to be astonishing. Yes, I would love him, but it may not happen. But that is an area, yes, which needs to be changed. You've seen the way we don't keep a settled midfield at all. Yes, the intensity, you need to change them, but that is a major area which keeps getting changed week after week, trying to find a winning formula. So it tells you in itself that that's the area. As for Mo Salah, listen, we couldn't afford to lose Mo Salah at the moment. If you took his goals out of the team, yes, Darwin Núñez has done very well, but if you take Mo Salah out now or the end of this season, where are you going to find those goals again? Other teams are searching for them. There's not a load of Erling Haalands out there who came for 51 million. That's what we've got to remember. Laughing.
I was going to say the Bellingham one's a fascinating one, Phil. I mean, you mentioned how important he could be for Liverpool. I don't think Guardiola at Manchester City can afford to let Jude Bellingham go to any of his rivals. I think he's got to take Bellingham away from Liverpool, and Chelsea are crying out for another central midfield player, because I think he helps Manchester City. He makes Manchester City a better player. Obviously we know the qualities he has, but he takes Liverpool and other teams to another level. Bellingham, he's that good. So if I was Pep Guardiola at the moment, I was thinking, how can I hurt Liverpool? What's the biggest hammer blow I can give to Liverpool in the summer? It's actually to take Jude Bellingham away from them, put him into that Manchester City midfield.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? How much will they pay for him? Probably City will announce that they've signed him for 31 million. You know, that it's a good deal, and their recruitment has been great. But listen, yeah, I can understand that. That was the Man United back in the 70s and 80s, wasn't it? Trying to take players just because they didn't want other people to do it. I think Pep is quite shrewd. He knows what he wants. You've seen before Haaland came, is that they did need a centre forward of his, and he's a goal machine. The fella is a goal machine, so that was right. But as for Bellingham to City, everybody's going to want it. Anybody who's got a bit of cash, probably anybody who hasn't got cash, will be wanting Jude Bellingham, and he's such a good player. But there's others out there. If Bellingham was not a bit, we need to have our hat in the ring for Declan Rice. You know, if Declan's that unhappy, he's another player who I think is a good player with the right attitude, with what would constitute to be a Liverpool player, and that would all sort of fit the bill. But it is an area which is you don't have to be a manager or anything to see the areas which need strengthening.
Phil, do you want me to ask you one thing? In terms of Liverpool's recruitment this summer, it looks as if maybe financially they can't compete with teams around, and talking about they need some more investment coming into the football club. Those players that might come in, the likes of Bellingham and Rice that you're talking about there, maybe another one or two. If Liverpool had to generate funds from within this squad at the moment, i.e. they had to get one or two players out the door, they had to get money in for players. Now you've just said you wouldn't sell Mo Salah, probably one of their biggest assets at the moment. You need him. But is there any other players in that present Liverpool team, if you had to generate funds to get a Bellingham in the door, who would you sacrifice? Would you be prepared to sacrifice Trent Alexander-Arnold on the open market, or even Van Dijk at the moment, to get somebody like Bellingham or Declan Rice into the club?
Excuse me. The likes of those players are not. I think Virgil's 30. Trent is obviously a lot younger. They're not. So you're not looking at them. But we've got, it's not only, there's players who are 30 odd, you know, Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think there's about another 3 or 4 players.
Yeah.
It's not just the value of selling them on. It's the contract, what they're on. They're on probably into the last year or two. And it's the salaries, what they're on. You put that all together, and there's massive savings there. We've not spent a great deal in the last couple of summers. We, as you said, we have to be very shrewd at what we do. What we do, we sometimes keep them, as we did with Van Dijk, as we did with Alisson. When that big one, and it was needed, we will make that purchase. And that's what I'm thinking, that's what I'm hoping is being done in the background, is we've saved our money. Our net spend has not been as great as any of the other clubs, is that we're saving it for those big ones in those areas that needs doing. So hopefully we've just saved our money in our little piggy bank ready for that big signing.
Tom, can I just briefly ask you about Virgil van Dijk? We touched on him earlier, and the term God complex came up, and we're trying to find reasons for his performance on Saturday and performances generally this season, which haven't been up to par as he has been in previous years. But like, how do you explain the Bournemouth goal at the weekend, for example? Because he, as we were saying earlier, just appeared to stop moving and almost gave up the ghost. The
ball, it went in the inside right position, and as they went past him, he stopped. And it's one of those, as a defender, where you think, I'm all right here. We've got him. He's going at such an angle, it'll be all right. Not realising that, obviously, what he's going to do after it. But it was the point of where he stopped in the penalty box. Now, if he'd have carried on his run, he might have got, when the guy pulls it back, for him to put it in. So, to me, it was a lapse of concentration. To me, that is complacency. It's not that urgency of what you've done against Manchester United. Like, there was one thing in the first half where it goes and it's the guy's running a goal, coming down the left-hand side, and Virgil's going like that. There's another man in the middle who this fella could pass it to. His angling was absolutely perfect. And he eased them away from goal, and then the ball ran over the byline. It was absolutely top-class defending. Now, one incident doesn't make just a whole game be right, but there's still that knowledge in his mind, there's still that pace in his mind. It's just not happening all the time. And to me, it's complacency, it's coming off the back of big games, and even the likes of the great players can drop to that. And we've had that happen too often this year. All those teams, those promoted teams, we can't keep struggling and losing against those teams. That's not Liverpool. Remember the words? We find a way. We're finding a way, as seems to have gone out of vocabulary.
Will they finish top four?
I do still think, I think the other teams are all sort of giving us that great opportunity. I do think we will finish top four. Sometimes you need a game, what happened at the weekend, to kick it on. The Newcastle game for us was not great. The Spurs are up and down at the moment. Newcastle, not lost many games. I still think it'll be hard, but I do think we'll finish top four. We'll finish third.
Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million.
All right, lads.
Finished
Cheers,
third.
Phil.
There you go.
Ta-da.
Do you think they're going to finish top four? I'm uncertain at the moment. I would have said before the weekend.
6 weeks ago, definitely no. I wouldn't say I've changed my mind. I'd probably maybe give them. Obviously, they're in a better position now, but just can't trust them.
But sorry, when they come back from the international break, back-to-back away games against Man City and Chelsea, and then a home game against Arsenal, like, they're not easy fixtures, Liverpool, when they come back.
What about Chelsea? Have they done a Lewis Hamilton and turned the corner?
I think they have. Yeah, I think they have. I'm quite pleased actually for the manager, because he's been dealt a difficult hand there, I think, since he's been at the football club. Just in terms, I want to said it before a few weeks ago, just in terms of trying to manage that squad, the numbers of players which has been thrown at him.
He seems to have a fairly consistent team selection over the last number of games. A consistent shape and a consistent players largely.
Yeah, I think that can help in terms of players coming back. Chilwell's come back, a bit of natural balance there. You can argue Fofana's come back into the team, but it's managing the other players. I think is just as much of a problem. You're right in terms of you're seeing something coming together on the pitch. João Felix, obviously a big fan of him. He looks very comfortable out there, to be honest with you, at the moment. Kovacic and Fernandes in midfield, you think, looks like a pair, and at last some kind of I still think they need to invest in another player in there. But yeah, so that's coming together. But it's the other players, the other 20. The other player hovering around standing around the training ground, with their chins on the floor. That's what he's got to manage as well, and that's what they haven't made it easy for him. But yeah, you can just see something coming together. I think that's all he had to do for me. Even like a couple of weeks ago, if you'd asked me before this little run you're talking about, he just needs to show the ownership something between then and the end of the season. Say, look, I can manage this. I can pull this together. We're kind of on our way. We're heading in the right direction, and I think he's certainly on his way at the moment.
Looked like a bit of spice off Antonio Conte in the touchline at the weekend as well. Like, I know Richarlison played well, Kane among the goals again. Heung-min Son, who's been poor all season, is all of a sudden it looked okay at the weekend. But Conte, I mean,
I think
everyone said he's given up at the club, but he looked very much involved at the weekend.
Yeah, I just think he's got prior to the game of the week for the last kind of couple of months. I've just felt this. You just get a sense of it. You know what I mean? Not obviously been around, and I can understand it. To be fair, taking the footballing perspective out in terms of money to spend and the whole shebang, the way that he is, but just on a personal level, in terms of what he's kind of gone through, lost a couple of close friends, personal issues, family, distance from the family. I'll factor all of those things in. It just might be, you know what I mean? His head, he's thinking, no, now it's time to kind of step away. So I still get a bit of a sense of that still might happen over the next couple of months.
He might make it to the end of the season now. You know, that they're going to be in the race for top 4. It turns out.
I think there's an argument, Ger. If there's a bit of a disconnect there between him, for whatever reason, I'm not saying he's.
Well, the performance wouldn't suggest there is, though, right?
No, he played well, yeah, but face their family at the moment, Spurs and any other team. Spurs, I mean, any supporters feel sorry for this year's Spurs supporters.
Get the new manager in, that was your argument.
Exactly. If there's somebody out there now, if it's Pochettino and they know, I'm ready to step back in. Get him in now.
We did a piece on Thursday with Martin Lipton, and I was like, the only reason not to do it is if you're the new manager and you know that there's a good chance Harry Kane is leaving, and whatever Martin Lipton was saying, the Spurs fans aren't going to blame whoever the manager is when he leaves, but it's going to be on your CV. I couldn't convince Harry Kane to stay. Harry Kane left and then joined whoever he joins. So maybe you want that bit of business to be done, and then you're coming in afterwards to fix things. That's the only thing I see.
I wouldn't even lean on that too much, to be honest with you. If they had an assurance from Pochettino, whoever it is, say Tuchel, I can't say that one, don't get me wrong, whoever it was, I'm prepared to come in now next week or tomorrow. I think so. If you feel as if a manager coming in is going to spark that kind of dressing room, kind of get a reaction, for the remaining kind of couple of months of the season, I think it's worth it. If they're kind of limping at the moment.
Yeah. I would have said the same until the weekend where they weren't limping at all. It was like game over. Thanks very much. Everybody's back.
I don't understand that dressing room. I've got to be honest. I don't understand it. I'm trying to think back to, we all play poorly collectively. We're talking about team sport there this morning. Drop off in levels, kind of attitude. Spill spoke about complacency, and that can happen occasionally. But I've never seen it happen so often with a team as with Spurs this year. Speaking to Spurs supporters, looking at performances, Shane, in terms of like just attitude, application, mentality. We can all play poorly in terms from the technical point of view, and you're not at your best at certain games. But generally speaking, there's a certain level of consistency in terms of your attitude. How you prepare, how you move, how you tackle, how you run, how you recover. All the basics, the fundamentals of the game generally are there week in, week out. There might be an exception here and there, but this Spurs team, I've never seen it so often, Ger.
Well, the run of results. So they beat Man City, and then Leicester hockey them, and then AC Milan beat them, and then they beat West Ham, and then they beat Chelsea, and then Sheffield United beat them, and then Wolves beat them.
Spurs, ladies and gentlemen.
It doesn't.
It's the manner of the performances, Ger, that I'm talking about. The amount of time Spurs players just right off the first half of the games.
Yeah.
Forget it, right off, and then let's wait for the bounce. Let's wait for the pickup.
When we're 2-0
down.
How
can that happen?
I don't know.
At that level, like a professional sport, like.
I don't know. I guess that's why we play the games, because.
But do you think that for me, I look at the dressing room there. I think there must be a bit of an underlying issue in terms of the dressing room there. The collective and that mentality. Senior players in particular, and lad, senior players, boss the dressing room, pull things together, pull people into line. All that's the ideal what you want. Generally, that's part of the course, kind of senior, battle-hardened, experienced players. I'm not too sure with that Spurs dressing room. The likes of Kane, Son, and one or two others in that dressing room, Eric Dyer, are they the type of characters that really bossing that dressing room, making huge demands? But you're talking about Kane maybe looking at his next move. I don't know. The likes of Eric Dyer, very kind of quiet, insular type of fella. So it is an experienced dressing room, but is it the type of dressing room that's holding people to account and demanding more of it? You're accepting those type of performances, Ger. Do you know what I mean?
It doesn't appear to be. It has not been over the years. They had the occasional flare up where they reached Champions League final, but even that season was very Spursy.
Yeah.
Like,
if you're Kane, do you want to leave now and get a trophy or two onto your roll of honour list, or do you want to be a one club man for the rest of your career?
Well, this is interesting because I think it's changed even the space of 9 months, 12 months with Kane. Last year, literally Manchester City could have picked Man United. They're all kind of falling over each other. I'm not too sure. Clearly Manchester City is an option for him this season. Who else are you talking about? Manchester United is an obvious when people say they're crying out Manchester United goal scorer, 20 goals. It's an easy fix. I don't think it is an easy fix, Harry Kane. If Harry Kane goes in there, does he score goals, 15 to 20 goals? Yeah, absolutely. I think he does maybe 25. But is there a drop off with Kane coming at that team? Yes. And we're talking about press there with Phil, the Liverpool front line. Are you going to start that press off with Harry Kane as your number 9 in terms of how Ten Hag demands of his players? No. Not the age that he's at. He's never been that type of player. Very kind of one pace. Doesn't really want to get involved in that press. Wants to conserve himself and do what he does. So I'm not too sure even Ten Hag's looking at Harry Kane. I'm sure he'd love his goals in the team, but at the same time he's looking at him thinking of the next 2 or 3 years. Physically, this lad's only heading in one direction. You know what I mean?
All right.
And I might have to carry him to an extent. So,
well, we might talk about Arsenal a little bit later on. If you want to give us your thoughts, you can get in touch. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Now, I'm delighted to say Tom English is with us to give us a perspective from Scotland this morning. Tom, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm all right, Ger. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. That was there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of bluster about the Six Nations, but it's fixtures like this that make it all actually true. All the cliches are cliches because in this instance they turned out to be true.
Yeah, listen, certainly for the first 40 minutes and maybe the first 50, 55 minutes, it was as good a contest as you're going to see. I thought it was not high scoring, but high class from both teams. I thought it was a magnificent battle. So many good things happening. And I think in the end, Ireland's class and nous and leadership won the day. They had loads of that and Scotland didn't have nearly enough of it.
It feels like Scotland, defeats like this, they can take them one of two ways. There's loads of different ways they can take them, but it does feel like Scotland are really building something meaningful, and that they didn't lose that much by losing that game. That actually, Gregor Townsend spoke afterwards about how the gap is closing, and it actually really felt like that. It did feel like Scotland could easily win this game. There's a path for them to win this game. There's a chance butchered, I think, is it just at the end of the first half, where if they'd scored that, it would have been very, very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, but it's a case of coulda, woulda, shoulda, Ger, And I take what Townsend is saying about the gap closing. I'm not sure I agree with it. This was the 8th defeat in a row for Scotland against Ireland. The previous 7, the average winning margin for Ireland was 14 points. This was 15. The average try count in those 7 games before Sunday was 3-1 for Ireland. It was 3-1 again. So, yeah, Scotland have got better. There's no question. Scotland have got better, but so have Ireland. And I think the gap remains. The closer it got to kick-off, the more I was puzzled as to how Scotland could win this game unless Ireland were off it. And how many times have we seen Ireland being off it to an extent where they expose themselves to defeat in the last 12 months? I mean, it's Ireland's ability to keep good teams scoreless for huge chunks of a match is incredible. They did it to New Zealand twice, the second and third test in the summer. They did it to South Africa. They did it to Australia. They did it to France. And now they've done it to Scotland. Scotland scored their only points in the 17th minute. Didn't score anything after that. I didn't think that would happen. But Ireland's ability to, and also to withstand adversity. Players dropping like flies. They get stronger. It's a testament to Ireland's squad depth. Gibson Park comes on off the pitch, on the pitch, after 54 minutes, and within a minute he's causing havoc. It's amazing. This Ireland squad is something special.
It was obviously a weekend of Ireland-Scotland fixtures, and Ireland put up a record number against the under-20s. Is there anything that we should be worried about from a Scotland perspective, where they're shipping 80 points in an under-20s game against Ireland?
No, not coming through. You look at both countries, and this is as good as it gets for Scotland. And I think this is a pretty good side, and I think they're getting better, and probably will get better again. But there's no cavalry on the hillside, whereas for Ireland, I mean, the cavalry fills the hillside. So Ireland just in the most spectacularly good place, the best place Irish rugby has ever been in terms of the national team, no question. And I think they'll go on and win the Grand Slam. So I think for Scotland, it's dispiriting, even though they put a lot of good stuff into the game. And if they beat Italy with a bonus point next week, they'll almost certainly finish third, which will represent progress. But against Ireland, the gap is still huge, and we've got this World Cup game coming up. And I'm not sure Scotland truly believe that they're good enough to beat this Irish team. They've conquered the hoodoo of winning in Wales, under Gregor Townsend. They've conquered winning in Twickenham after 38 years without doing it. They've conquered Paris after 22 years without a win. The big bogeyman is Ireland now. And I don't think they're that much closer to turning over Ireland when Ireland are on song. And Ireland are always on song these days. There's very, very few chinks of light, even when you have a 35-year-old prop playing hooker and you have an open side flanker thrown into the line out. Still, there's this steel and this extraordinary winning machine just cranks it up another gear.
Tom, there was a moment that I noticed in the second half where Johnny Sexton kicks either a conversion or a penalty and turns around to the crowd and kind of gives it a little smirk because he clearly was not getting maybe the silence and respect that kickers ordinarily get. We have a comment in this morning on the YouTube from Neil Smith. He says, lads, I don't know what you think, but the Scots were infuriating. The crowd jeering our kicks and mistakes, Hogg, etc., shoving players in the sideline, just childish stuff. What was it like at Murrayfield? Did you get that sense that there was a bit of shithousery from the Scots?
No, I didn't. I thought for the first half, I think everyone was so engrossed in it that they forgot to kind of shout and roar. I thought it was kind of quiet for a lot of it. And I don't know, the Sexton, let's be honest, kickers don't mind. Sexton has been around forever.
Yeah.
Does it matter a damn to him if a crowd boos or stays silent? I don't think it does. I really don't think it does. I think he'd probably prefer the noise. So it gets him going, it fires him up. Competitive juices and all that. I think it's just a cut and thrust. There was a bit of needle between the players at various times, a couple of late shots on both sides. But no, I didn't get any sense that this was a really intimidating Murrayfield at all.
I think Hogg turned around and celebrated when the try got scored, but Jack Conan did exactly the same thing when somebody got tackled into it. It's definitely a lot of green tinted glasses going, oh, they're very mean to us. I'm like, yeah, they should be. It's a big game.
Yeah,
let them at it.
Yeah, it's a big game, and if there's there's an awful lot of emotion involved in it. So if someone turns around to somebody else and points the finger after the score, let's not make a big deal of it.
Well, I agree. I think that, and I think you're dead right too. There's a lot of nonsense about the quiet for the kicker, which
yeah,
like a snooker player.
Well, the pub's being shushed. Shut up. Come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen,
well, that's ridiculous.
Limerick, when I was on the Irish rugby beat, you go to a Munster game and then you go into Miles Breen's bar in Limerick, the middle of Limerick, 8 hours later, and the match would be played on the big screen at 11 o'clock at night. And the whole pub will be calling for quiet for Rodgers' penalty.
I mean, that's a bit. I acknowledge that there's a commitment to the bit there that I'm in favour of.
And if you had the temerity to talk while Rodgers was kicking 8 hours after the match was over, you were in big trouble in the bar.
It sounds like you were chatting away there, Tom.
I was showing total disrespect.
Personal experience. Look, we're trying to get we're getting to that point now where we're allowing ourselves to be carried away as supporters of a thing that's a really beautiful thing that's unfolding before ourselves, and that's the whole point. I keep making the point on the show. The whole point about sport is you're supposed to love it. You're supposed to love it. We have a team that is fully deserving of all the love that we have.
Totally, they're an awesome team. As I said, a winning machine. They've beaten all comers in the last 12 months. We've only, for all the success as a rugby nation, we've only ever won 3 Grand Slams. And none of them in Dublin. So this is a massive, massive opportunity. Admittedly, again, Andy Farrell said this post-match against an England team that's hurting big time. But a hurting England, I still don't think they beat a switched-on Ireland. I actually don't even think they come all that close to beating a switched-on Ireland. And the professionalism, we talk about all the class and the nous and the leadership and the depth, but the professionalism in this Irish squad is off the scale as well. So the notion, the country can go mad, great, why wouldn't we? We know that the players and the management team are going to have their feet so much on the ground, they may as well be cemented in the grounds of Carton House this week. I think they're just ruthless, and I'd fall off my chair if they didn't close the deal on the weekend.
You feel like, Tom, they're psychologically brilliant as well, because there's even a moment in the second half when Fagerson, I think it was, for Scotland, hits a comically bad forward pass, and the two teams go into two respective huddles. And I think Donald Lenihan mentioned on the commentary as well that the body language of the two huddles was drastically different, and that was something that really stood out.
I think after, there was this leading up when about 55 minutes in, a number of things happened that were, Scotland changed their props, and their two props were really, really good. And I still think there was plenty of juice left in the tank, but the Townsend changed them. I think that was a mistake. And then the first scrum after that, with Healy playing hooker, Ireland won a penalty. I think that was a big moment. Psychologically, I think that was a big moment, because a couple of minutes later, James Lowe scored. And I think if that wasn't lights out for Scotland psychologically, the fact that Ireland scored again very soon after, a couple of minutes after, with Conan, and that's just after the hour mark. And at that point, you're looking at Scotland, and I think the body language is, we're a beaten team here. We don't believe we can get back into this. They tried their hearts out. But the message I was getting from them, just looking at them, was we can't beat this Ireland team. And that is, obviously that was damaging on the day, but it has spin-off effect for the World Cup. I think Ireland have got into Scotland's head over the last 7-8 matches now, and have done untold psychological damage that most other teams in the world haven't done to Scotland. In fact, Scotland have done it to them by going on, winning big matches. But this Ireland team is different gravy.
Hopefully they can do it against South Africa for us, and we win the group and avoid France. Tom,
when is the World Cup chat going to start, lads?
I mean, I think we started 3 years ago, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm not lying. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million. Cheers,
lads. All the best.
Cheers, Tom. Tom English there, giving us the view from Scotland this morning. It's 9:01. OTB AM is live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. Kenny, Arsenal are the real deal.
A bit of a come down after that interview. I really enjoyed that interview. I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, I haven't enjoyed an interview for so long. Yeah, that was spot on, wasn't it?
Oh, you've seen many interviews. What was so good about it? Give us your immediate notes.
No, I was loving it.
He's excited. We're excited.
Everything that he said, it was amazing.
He mentioned the James Lowe try, and there's a number of comments coming in about Luke Pearce's refereeing in the game yesterday. But there was moments in that Lowe try move where Scotland could have had a couple of yellow cards. The Senegal play, and it was almost like
you get punished.
Yeah, you get punished for continuing the move.
You do get punished.
But you could get a penalty try with an automatic conversion.
I don't know. Is there like a double jeopardy thing? There's frequently, whenever we would have in the past been constantly, so against New Zealand it happened a couple of times, you're actually better conceding the try than not conceding the try, because then you don't get the yellow card in the 10 minutes in the sin bin and the penalty try.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're at the end of a long period of play, it's better to allow the other team to score in some ways, because the referee is more than likely going to give you a yellow card. Although it's hard to know. Have they stopped giving yellow cards? Do they not exist anymore?
Luke Pearce didn't want to give any out yesterday, which was,
I don't know,
strange. Yeah, I thought the refereeing just was questionable at a number of times during the match. It doesn't matter now, obviously, but
I think it's interesting when he speaks about like the scar in there, that Scottish team, like psychologically going into the World Cup. I've never been one for, people roll out stats, they haven't beat this team for so long and such. It's got to be in their heads. You think, pinch of salt, it's a new game, it's a different time, you know what I mean? But, as Tom was explaining there, by the time the World Cup comes around, it's only going to be, a couple of months since that or his performance at Murrayfield. Same kind of group of players, like, what I mean?
Not many competitive games, really.
Yeah,
that's
but I think that'll be fresh. Those kind of those experiences that those Scottish players would have felt being toe to toe with that Irish team, they'll still be fresh in their heads. As much as try and park that to the side, which we all try and do. It's all right, lads. It's a new day. It's a new game. Come on, you know what I mean? It's got to be, that doubt has got to be there. That doubt has got to be there in their minds, and you're looking for a chink. You're looking for Ireland to open up and show you something when that game comes around again. But this Ireland team, like Tom was saying there, it's just absolutely machine. Absolute mentality monsters. I'm going to use the word with the Irish rugby team.
Someone pressed the alarm.
Used before, it must have been. It must be. Let's take it off Liverpool. Let's take it off the Reds. And let's attach it to the Ireland rugby team.
Mentality monsters.
I mean, like, that is the very definition of what they're doing.
100%. But you'd wonder what happened to Scots. This is the country that produced Robert the Bruce and William Wallace. And
have you seen Trainspotting?
Well, yeah.
We couldn't even get colonised by somebody decent at that speech. They're more Irving Welsh's version of. Let's not get into the Nicola Sturgeon replacement sweepstakes conversation. We can save that for our politics pod. Right, we should talk about Arsenal though.
Mentality monsters. Go on, the Arsenal. we probably don't talk enough about them.
The last minute winners, right?
Yeah.
When at the end of the season, and the comeback against Villa, at the end of the season, when they look back on these things, like the team plays really badly and coughs up goals, and so pre-match they're talking. I'm talking about the Villa game here. Pre-match they're like, don't let Ollie Watkins get one-on-one down that side. He's going to do damage to you. And then Ollie Watkins does that, and they're like, ooh, that thing that we practice, we're not very good at. But they still come back from it. And now the cavalry's coming back in terms of players coming back from injury, and the bench was really strong. There's just a bit of the season where you're thinking.
I think you're right. I think that mojo is back. They lost it there for a small period of time. Maybe you say understandably, Partey came out of the team at that time, didn't he? Jorginho came back in, lost a little bit of rhythm, kind of fluency to their play, and Villa put it up to him. Absolutely found a way to win. Probably the Leicester game as well. I covered the week after that. Not at their best there at all in that game. I thought Leicester left them off the hook. They were desperately disappointed, but even still got through that back-to-back wins. This was off the back of the defeat to Manchester City up potential wobble, but obviously seem to have found their confidence again since then. And that game yesterday at Fulham, I mean, that game, Ger, I was thinking, potential banana skin here. Fulham are absolutely no mugs this season in terms of how well they've been set up by their manager, and Arsenal just kind of seemed to anyway brushed them aside in that first half, and it seems to be back. The magic, the mojo is back there, and if they can tap into that between now and the end of the season, I think they'll win it. There's no doubt about that, because when they're playing to that level, which they were for the majority of the first half, Shane, it was hugely impressive what they were doing.
Given what's available, right? It's 2-2 in the Sporting game heading into the second leg. I'm not saying you throw it, right? But do you just
you can't throw it.
Do you just not do the same level of effort? Do you just not pick?
Chance for trophy, Ger.
But there's a champions. Right, there's a champions of England. If they play this game, there's going to be is that round of last 16? It's round of last 16. So there's still quarterfinals, semi-finals to go. There are suspensions. There's players being dropped who are pissed off.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right, and he'll never come out and say it publicly, Arteta. He'll never even admit it to the dressing room, to any players. But I'm sure he'd probably have those conversations with his trusted kind of lieutenants within the confines of the manager's room or whatever, in terms of, right, at this moment in the season, what do we need to prioritise? What are you seeing in terms of injuries, certain players? And I think you're absolutely right. Will he put the U team out against Sporting next? Of course he won't, but in key areas of the pitch, it only takes one or two small slight adjustments. Oh, hello, Saka's on the bench. That's an interesting one tonight. Maybe Saliba, just key players in one or two areas of the pitch where he's thinking, just need to protect these a little bit. You're right, I think the focus shifts. But I don't know, Joe, I got a sense of, prior to the league game last week,
Bournemouth.
Yeah, he took a couple out against Bournemouth. I thought he'd go double strong Bournemouth and weaken it a little bit in terms of the sport. A bit like you were saying there. I thought it was an occasion for right. Let's really focus, prioritise. But I just got a bit of a sense of, and he's a bit like that Arteta, understandably so. Maybe getting a bit greedy. I could do both here. Yes, we can win the league, but a league and a European trophy as well. Well, that's taking it to another level. You do. I think that competitive edge, that kind of drive, which he has, a lot of the elite managers, they all kind of have it. They're not happy. I'm not actually. Let's do both.
Could they get Man United in the quarterfinals?
I think they can.
Right. So there's no.
Juventus are there as well. Like, there's some good teams left in the Europa League.
Maybe that's what But here's the other side of that. Like the great team of '99 of Arsenal was a really brilliant team, but they got crushed by the Giggs goal in the cup.
Yeah.
Like that had a massive psychological setback for them that season.
Yeah.
And do you just think that I
think one can complement the other, Jay. It's not as easy as to say we need to concentrate on one or the other.
It's like a...
Yeah, exactly. And I think it depends on the time, the dressing room, the players, the buzz. That's where I think a manager has to be very intuitive in that kind of situation. Logic will dictate, I just prioritise the league, let's row in behind that completely.
But it's not straightforward.
Yeah, but he might feel as if, now hold on, the buzz we're getting from this Europa League, the lads are really kind of buying. One's confident, we're on train journey here. It's all good. Let's keep the whole forward momentum going rather than give up that competition. Now, all of a sudden there's a bit of a hangover from that bit of disappointment that you've come out of that, and that suddenly starts to affect the league form as well. So yeah, it is very interesting.
Before they play Man City at home, which is the game everyone's looking at on April 26th, they have Palace at home, Leeds at home, Liverpool away, granted, West Ham away, and Southampton at home. Like before they play City, they could be 8 to 10 points clear, couldn't they?
So, yeah.
And the international break in the middle, where they'll just keep their fingers crossed that everybody comes back alive. One final point: Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know why they picked him for that game. What was his relevance for the Arsenal Palace game?
It doesn't have to be an Arsenal or a Palace play. You're not what it is like.
Well, it's just he's not one of the regular guys.
There's no history with the football club. So what does he know about that Arsenal team?
Neutral
How
voice.
could he possibly commentate and offer an opinion?
We've touched a sore point here, have we?
God's sake!
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So predictable.
And he didn't play for Arsenal.
Normally what they do is they have a regular and they
wouldn't be able to earn a living. To be fair, if that was the case, I couldn't pitch him and commentate in any Premiership game. To be honest, Wimbledon don't even exist. They don't even exist anymore. The teams I played for.
Birmingham do.
Birmingham's in turmoil, bless him. Oh, there. Championship.
Anyway, Footballer of the Year, Bukayo Saka, was what he said pre-match. Agree or disagree?
He's up there. He's up there. Level of performance, consistent high level performance, Joe. Yeah, phenomenal.
There's a Norwegian striker there scoring goals for fun that might have an issue.
I'd say he's in the top three, Saka. Without a doubt, he's in the conversation. Without a doubt. Even his numbers, Joe, his numbers now are getting... Initially when he came in, you could see the qualities which he had. But his numbers weren't there. You know what I'm talking about? What are you laughing at? What's he laughing at?
Who am I?
Oh, sorry, Ger. Ger, excuse me.
He hasn't called me Owen yet.
But yeah, in terms of where is he ever coming back? Is he ever coming back? Where is he?
He's in Patagonia.
He's in Patagonia. He's in Patagonia. He's on Instagram. That would be a good reason for you to get a smartphone so you can follow him on Instagram.
Is he?
Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
He's all right. That's all I want to know. Don't want to go too deep on it. Is he all right?
We were all a bit worried.
He's in a good place.
He's in a good place. I presume he is.
But mentally, I'm talking about like your rugby team.
Yeah.
Is he in that?
He's a mentality monster from Kerry.
Right.
He was hitchhiking down to Patagonia and was off for out of coverage for about 24 hours. There was definitely concern.
Oh, there was.
But he's fine again. It's okay.
Popped his head. Yeah, and he is coming back. He is going to return.
We hope so.
To the Emerald.
Hopefully he's mentality monster. He'll have a big beard and bushy hair and a bit of a Forrest Gump look.
More rounded approach to life and that
holistic.
That's holistic. Yeah.
Speaking like Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, 100%.
Just go to a kibbutz like anybody else for about months.
Did you go to a kibbutz?
No, I couldn't have done that.
Would you have ever done what was the dark room I was talking about one day on Around the World?
Aaron Rodgers, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers was doing the darkness meditation where you go into a dark room for 3 days and just sit in the complete pitch black for 3 days and be alone with your thoughts and you start to hallucinate.
That's what I thought where Jurgen Klopp was, funny enough. I recommended after Brighton. Remember the Brighton performance some time ago? That was all-time low. I felt as if that's what he needed to do in terms of whether he needed to...
The dark room?
Yeah, just kind of go within himself and have I got it within myself to kind of put this whole thing back together again and go again, kind of rebuild that type of thing. Have I got it in me? I mean, obviously got a bit serious there, but
40 days and 40 nights in the desert is the old say. Now it's our telescoped environment. You can do it in 3 days and come out the other side and you're the Messiah again, in Aaron Rodgers' case. Or in Klopp's. 13 minutes past 9. That took a turn. OTB AM live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now. Here's what's on the OTB podcast network for you. Brian Kerr talking about Man United's 0-0 draw with Southampton. Sunday pay-per-view with Dion Fanning and Fionn Davenport. And Cian Healy reflecting on Ireland's win, where he came off the bench to play hooker and did a really, really good job. You can follow Off the Ball across our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network. After this short break, Sarah Donovan's on the line talking hurling.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
Zebo going on his own, he gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Carberry gets over the line, try from Munster.
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
The Heineken Champions Cup is back. Leinster take on Ulster in the round of 16, Saturday, April 1st at 5:30 in the Aviva Stadium. Join the Sea of Blue for this massive inter-provincial clash. Tickets on sale now at leinsterrugby.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now.
Right, we've all been desperately trying to work out why the league is important, or which of the storylines that are emerging in the Allianz Hurling League have been important. Sarah Donovan is with us this morning to try and sift through to find the nuggets of gold. Sarah, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. I think there were some nuggets of gold, Ger, actually. I enjoyed Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday. Despite the fact that Cork were losing for the majority until the 63rd minute, when Cormac Bosan got the goal. Wexford were going to always react after that pummeling that they took from Clare. So I suppose there was a bit of naivety on Cork's part. They started really slowly. They were overpassing the ball. I remember a few weeks ago I was talking to you about Kilkenny and how, I suppose, unlike Kilkenny they were against Tipperary. You know, indecisive, poor decision making. Cork were like that yesterday in the first half.
And before we get on to Wexford, because I know there's definitely bits there that we need to talk about, what do you think was the reason for that?
Again, a shuffle of the deck, new players in. Padraig Power was in full forward, really liked the look of him. Cormac Bosan came on and got the goal at the end to win it. Last week, Pat Ryan sent his players back to the clubs. And I know that Paul Murphy and Jabe Skell were wondering last week on the Hurling Pod whether was it to do with a kind of a backlog and were Cork trying to be helped out. But I think Pat Ryan was looking to give his players a bit of confidence, having done a training block. And it worked out because Cormac Bosan scored 112 last week for Middleton in their win over Bishopstown. And he comes on yesterday fresh and he's barely on the pitch and he gets the goal. And I think that's the difference in Cork this year, that Pat is able to tweak the players and give them confidence week on, week on.
Wasn't easy against that Wexford defensive setup either, Sarah. Like, you look at Diarmuid O'Keefe and Cal Dunbar being used as sweepers. Is it good to watch?
It was very, very congested. Matthew O'Hanlon was back there as well. I think if Matthew O'Hanlon hadn't gone off injured, I don't know if Cork would have got the goal because there was so much little space inside there. But having shipped 625 against Clare, you know, Wexford were always going to do something a little different, and it worked for them for the majority.
Yeah, I think from their perspective, okay, they lose the game and it's a late goal that catches them. They're going to feel a little bit happier about this defeat than they did about the Clare one. So the reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Oh well, Chin returns yesterday, and Lee Chin gave an exhibition yesterday. He ghosted around that field. Some of the free taking was sublime, and some of his points from play, real pressure situations. The issue was that Cork actually couldn't get a handle on him. So Cork obviously were trying to hold their structure. Kieran Joyce was trying to sit at 6, and it was just I'd say the energy that he took trying to get people to pick Chin up, because Chin kept dropping off and coming back in, a bit like Tony Kelly. And it showed on the scoreboard. Chin, you know, he ran the show for Wexford. So are Wexford feeling, notwithstanding the fact that the psychological blow at the end of the game, are they feeling pretty good about life in the aftermath of this, that they got their players back, they had a defined pattern of play, and so from, you know, we're sifting for gold here, come the Leinster round robin, because I think we were all assuming that they were going to be fodder if the Clare form was a form line. That's not the case, and nobody's going to look forward to facing them. Yeah, I'd agree. I think Dublin-Kilkenny, which we'll get on to later, I think that Wexford have the measure of Kilkenny, and I think they'd fancy themselves against Dublin playing the way they played against Cork yesterday. So they've certainly shifted the mindset in terms of what they can do in the Leinster Championship this year. The All-Ireland Championship's a different scenario, but certainly I think from a Leinster Championship point of view, they'll be much happier after this game than they were, say, 2 weeks ago. But 4 injuries again yesterday. Conor McDonald had to go off as well. They're having no luck with injuries. None whatsoever.
Well, we'll wait and see what the bulletin is like in terms of the prognosis for it. I know Davy Fitzgerald in the aftermath of the Waterford game was talking about the series of injuries that they have and how the hamstrings are likely to keep players out of at least the opening rounds and potential rounds of Munster. So their defeat to Tipperary wasn't just on the scoreboard, it was psychological as well.
Yeah, Tip, I think Nash spoke last week about getting goals, and they did. Jake Morris, a great hat-trick. But you know what? He's coming off the end of some great running from the likes of Dan McCormack, real clever play from the likes of Bonner Marr. The Tip's intelligence off the ball and their willingness to break the line and their off the ball, off the shoulder running sets them apart, and Waterford didn't have an answer for that on Saturday night.
You mentioned Kilkenny, Sarah. Was it it appeared to be a disappointing Dublin performance? They kind of maybe didn't do themselves justice in that game.
Yeah, they had some bright shoots. Obviously, Donald Burke scored 11 points, and some of his scores were outstanding. Cian Boland had some great late scores. Paul Crummy got a great goal, but structurally, it looked like men against boys. And I think we spoke about a couple of weeks ago about Dublin needing to put on that bulk, and the Kilkenny players that have come back in, like lads, Owen Cody 2 years ago did not look like the man that he is now. Like, he's put on that bulk, and he was in corner forward yesterday, and his positioning, he made those 2 goals that he got yesterday look really easy, but his positioning is top class, and he ends up with 2-2, a real statement of intent for the new Kilkenny captain.
I was sticking with Kilkenny then for a while. We were wondering how long it was going to take, and I think that we'll decide after the round robin what kind of a job Derek Ling is doing. But in terms of that sense of evolution, you're beginning to see some stuff, and I guess in fairness to him, he hasn't had the full deck to deal with for much of the campaign, and still doesn't have the full deck.
Yeah, I like Richie Reid coming back in made a massive difference, and I was wondering whether Padraig Walsh would survive if Reid comes back in. But Walsh yesterday was class, so I think there's definitely a place for both of them in the team. Whereas last year Cody didn't have a place for Walsh, so certainly very interested to see how Ling is using Walsh this year. Outside of that, Drennan, Billy Ryan, John Donnelly. Like, John Donnelly was probably playing the role that TJ Reid will inevitably play. So Ling certainly can be very happy with yesterday's performance, and much crisper delivery of the pass, much quicker delivery of the pass. They just look very workmanlike yesterday, and their general play was very clean.
The speed at which the games are being played at the moment, and the pitches they're being played on, and just the general weather. Like, the weather at the end of April, not great either. The weather in May can be good, can be bad. Like the traditional summer hurling championship fair, Munster hurling that we would have traditionally associated with the All-Ireland Championship, you have to get through a slog of pitches and still be good when the weather picks up. It's kind of a weird season now.
It is, and yesterday there was a real struggle on both sides, Cork and Wexford. The conditions were very, very tough, and a couple of complaints about the slitter as well. I actually met Anthony Nash coming out of the pitch yesterday, and he said the slitter, now you can ask him on Friday, but like I felt the players weren't striking the slitter as well as they ordinarily would, so I think they'd have a couple of complaints about that now, having seen yesterday's performances in that wet field. And it's the teams that are able to best deal with it, and the teams that are a bit more physical, like Tip Saturday night against Waterford, are probably the teams that will do well in those kind of heavier underfoot conditions. So if you have the bulk and you have the physicality to get through April, you'll do well in May.
In Limerick, they were killing the fatted calf. The prodigal sons are back. It was against Westmeath. The definition of off-Broadway, and that's not being mean to Westmeath, but in the second half, Westmeath actually put in a great performance, and they drew the second half. But obviously the game was well out of reach in the first half. But Aaron Gillan is back. A couple of other players coming back from injury, and everything seems to be now pointing towards them having a full deck to deal with come summer.
Yeah, well, Diarmaid Burns was back in yesterday, scored 2 points from wing back, very comfortable, was taken off, but that wasn't because he was playing badly or anything. Gillan got his score late on. Shane, you'll be delighted. It was a volley. It wasn't a half volley. No,
Definite
it was a volley.
Yeah.
It was a definite volley. But a bit of showboating out of him. I liked it. You know, he said, I'm back. And I think Limerick need that. I missed him for the last few games, but as I said to you earlier, Seamus Flanagan definitely missed him. His scoring averages were way down, so it'll be interesting to see now how he plugs back in and whether he'll be used fully in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, like at training in Limerick, it's going to be fairly savage given they have got a bunch of young players who are on the fringes of the team, as opposed to in previous years they might have been on the fringes of the panel.
Yeah, like if you look at the likes of Shane O'Brien, Donal O'Dowlig, Adam English, and now they're going head to head with the likes of Gillan, Cian Lynch, Seamus Flanagan. I would love to be on that sideline watching that training session, because there will be skin and hair flying, no doubt, because those boys aren't going to let the young lads come in and steal their thunder. It's killer.
For me, that was the big story of the weekend, to be honest. Like, notwithstanding the fact that Wexford are actually, again, and it'll be interesting to see in Will's power rankings what the changes are, but that Limerick, we need to get worried about this.
Yeah, but I said the only thing that'll stop Limerick is themselves and that discipline. And if you look at Waterford on Saturday night, Jamie Barron gets sent off. They've had a red card, I think, in every game, bar one where there was 2 yellows, but they've essentially lost a player and played without a player in every game. And they were very efficient against Tipperary in the first, say, 40, 50 minutes. But if they keep, if their discipline pulls players out of the game and makes them weaker, I think Limerick could have the same issue. Like that's the only thing that's going to catch them is their discipline. And the sending off of Kyle Hayes impacted them against Westmeath, nothing. But it could have a big impact down the line in a Munster Championship game if they lose a player. And I think that's the only way that Limerick can be got.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, we'll leave it there for now. Good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
That's Sarah Dunham giving us a reflection on the weekend's hurling. John Duggan is at Cheltenham, where tomorrow is the big day. John, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, lads. Ger, Shane and Kenny, how's the form?
All good. How's your form?
Great, yeah. Slept well, slept like a baby, and ready for the marathon.
How many years in a row is this now, John?
Well, obviously I missed the COVID year because we weren't allowed to go in, was it 2 years ago? This is my 21st year.
Jeez.
We were talking about the weather. The weather has been cat here. What's the weather like there?
Stormy, lashing rain all through the night. Soft ground, folks. Soft ground horses all week. It's going to rain a bit more apparently today, and on Thursday is going to be a deluge as well. So, look, if you backed horses at Leopardstown at Christmas or Punchestown and Ferryhouse in December, all of those races were run on soft ground. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're looking at the form book, but you need to have soft ground horses with stamina in their profile on your side this week, because it's going to be a wintry week in March.
That is like unusual. There's been good ground at Cheltenham, like predominantly maybe 8 out of the last 10 years, right?
Yes, 2018 we had the Beast from the East that year, was heavy ground, but generally, Jerry, yes, it's good to soft ground at Cheltenham. The ground dries out quickly here, but with the rain coming, we saw on the Wednesday last year it was desperate conditions when it was a rain all day, but I think there's going to be rain consistently, and although the ground can dry out, it'll be cold as well. So you're looking at horses that appreciate a bit of giving the ground.
Yeah, Kenny's making a face here. Cold and wet. No, thanks.
It's tough going. But you could be hurling. You could be hurling in that weather. Could be worse. Yeah.
Could be worse.
John, Kenny was predicting an absolute slaughtering at the Aviva Stadium this weekend, and feels like the Pressbury Cup is going to be a similar slaughtering. It could be a good week for the Irish.
I'd expect so. There hasn't been a UK winning year since 2015, lads. So 6 wins for Ireland and a tie. And really, to be honest, it's become almost Punchestown away, this festival in recent years. Last year, you had 18 Irish winners out of 28 races. The year before, 23. I was looking all through the odds last night, and of the 28 races this year, there's 19 Irish favourites. Like Willie Mullins last year had 10 winners, more than the whole of the English Challenge. The year before that, Rachel Blackmore had more winners as a jockey than the English Challenge. So I'd expect it to be more of the same. Willie Mullins has got a huge arsenal. Gordon Elliott is confident about his chances. Henry de Bromhead has got the Gold Cup winner and the champion hurdle winner, although Honeysuckle's going to the Maris Hurdle this year. So racing can always throw up surprises, but on the law of averages and on the basis of what we're seeing in terms of the form, I'd expect Ireland to have probably between 15 and 20 winners this week.
This is the end of Honeysuckle, really. It's her last hurrah with Rachel Blackmore, we expect.
Yes, that's tomorrow in the Mares Hurdle, which is a competitive race. Like, Honeysuckle had never lost a race in her life before this season, Ger. She lost the Hatton's Grace Hurdle. She was third in that, and then second behind State Man in the Irish Champion Hurdle. And the reason why she's not going for the Champion Hurdle this year is you've got this, and they say this in the nicest possible way, a freak of a horse in Constitution Hill who has won every single race under rules and never by less than 12 lengths. And this horse looks like the best hurdler possibly since Sisterbrack. State Man is going to put it up to him tomorrow for William Mullins, but Constitution Hill, who was bought by Barry Geraghty as a 6-month-old foal, is really the horse that everybody wants to see, and it'll be tomorrow at 3:30 in the Champion Hurdle. That's why Honeysuckle's gone for a retirement in the Mares race, but it's a competitive race as well. But hopefully the horse will come back safely with Henry de Bromhead, and all will be good, you know.
Davy Russell, Tom Brady came back from retirement.
Yeah,
and did okay. Davy Russell is Ireland's Tom Brady. What's your expectation? What's his? Go on.
There's hope for us 40-somethings, Ger. I can tell you that.
There's not, lads. You're over the hill. Forget about it.
Benjamin Button, what? Davy Russell, 25 Cheltenham winners. Like, he retired just before Christmas, but Jack Kennedy broke his leg. So Gordon Elliott, his trainer, is going to rely on experience, and nobody knows Davy better around here in terms of the veteran jockeys. So 25 winners at Cheltenham. I'd expect him to be in the winners' enclosure a few times this week. But also look at Jordan Gainford, because Jordan's an up-and-coming jockey for Gordon Elliott. He might have a winner or two as well.
Okay. And then the last thing, the Gold Cup, it's Willie Mullins, Galopin des Champs is the favourite. But last year's winner, A Plutard, is coming back as well.
Yeah, so A Plutard hasn't run since November when he disappointed in Haydock. He was pulled up. He ran no sort of race, a lifeless race. But if he's back to his best, he won the race by 15 lengths last year under Rachel Blackmore. We have Galopin des Champs. This horse could gallop probably from Cheltenham to Ireland. He's that kind of the way he runs his races. So he's a 7-year-old improver. He won very well at the John Durkin Chase in December. He won that at Leopardstown. He jumps well. He travels well. He's won at the festival before. He's got a favourites chance. Brave Man's Game is the big English Hope, the King George winner at Christmas. So look, you've got the three of them, and then you've all the stayers. And in this soft ground over 3.25 miles with a hill, it takes a bit of getting. So there's horses like Statler, Noble Yates that might come into the equation.
Do you feel pressure on weeks like this, John, or do you get to enjoy it? Because I know a lot of people are almost relying on you to maybe win a couple of quid, people who don't ordinarily gamble the rest of the year.
I often enjoy it when I'm having my first drink on the Friday night at the airport if I'm ahead. And if I'm not ahead and I'm getting all the stick, then it's not as pleasurable.
No, I can imagine.
You need 2 drinks.
Stick, no crack. Come here, is there a Cheltenham hat? I noticed something's slightly missing there.
Absence.
Well, I didn't bring the big hat. I didn't bring because maybe, I don't know whether I'm superstitious or something. I've got a woolly hat because it's a woolly hat week. So the woolly hat's in the pocket, but I'm actually standing up now. So if I put it in my head right now, I'd probably lose the connection. So they've got fedoras. They've got, what I'll probably do, you know what I'm going to do, because racing's going this way. I'm going to buy a Peaky Blinders cap.
Hey.
I'm going to wear it.
Go for
it. Stetson, John. Go to Stetson.
I'll have all the lingo for you folks, the Peaky Blinders lingo by the time Wednesday or Thursday
comes. Get the Brummie accent out as well, yeah.
All right, mate.
Looking forward to it, John. Best of luck.
All right, lads.
Thanks
See
a million. JD live from Cheltenham every morning here on OTB AM and across all of our social channels, of course, and on the radio on Off the Ball on
Never
Newstalk
seen
as
him
well.
smiling so much, John.
Natural.
Loving, isn't he?
His milieu.
Footballers go to Cheltenham all the time, don't they?
Oh yeah, you must have every year, no?
Yeah.
Cliche.
Yeah, but did you though?
I did. I was dragged a bit. I've got to be honest with you.
So you did go.
I was dragged. It was a long day.
Yeah,
it's a long day.
It is a long day.
It is a long
day. Bit of crack though, no?
It depends, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does
if the wrong crowd, if you're
the crowd's important. You're right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I didn't hang around too long.
You're like
dog racing. The dog racing. To
you
be
prefer
honest.
that?
Greyhound. Yeah, better night. I thought. Yeah, in the standby tee, races come quicker. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to overthink the
Wimbledon
form
was a famous dog track, wasn't there?
Yeah, Wimbledon dogs. Yeah. Walthamstow as well. Down there's a few of them.
E17, Walthamstow.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, good show. You're very impressive with that.
Well, that was the name of the album.
Oh, even more impressive. That was the album name.
Well, it was
and the band.
It was the album name because that's where they're from.
Mastermind.
It's not,
Yeah, even still. Trying to pay you a compliment.
I know.
If you don't accept it, don't.
I didn't know what to do.
Don't accept it. Sorry.
I'm
an Irish compliment an Irishman.
There you go. Thanks very much. Some news we didn't get to, obviously, Rory McIlroy missing the cut. Scotty Scheffler won the Players, back to world number 1. Rui Littlejohn injured moments after coming on for Aston Villa. Still, do we know exactly how bad the injury is? Or okay, we'll wait and see what the crack is. And obviously, Rashida Adeleke should definitely have been in green this morning.
Did you see the quotes from Michael Johnson?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
No, what did Johnson say?
So Johnson's retweeted Pierce O'Callaghan, who's a renowned Irish athletics journalist, just retweeting the video of her running at the weekend in the 400 metres at the NCAATF in Albuquerque, and he retweeted and said, giving her advice basically, Michael Johnson, look out when she learns to use those arms. She's carrying them instead of using them to drive the legs. The difference is significant over 400, helps increase speed and reduce fatigue. So some free coaching from Michael Johnson.
I would seek him out and go, what do you mean?
Yeah,
show me.
We used to get coaches in we used to play athletics coaches used to come in about our running action, and that was always the big thing with the lads,
the arms,
in terms of the arm motion. But it's absolutely hilarious. Like, you see, just go back into your old mode. As soon as the balls came out, a little kind of five-a-side, it was like Jimmy Johnson style.
So he's saying basically she's carrying the arms instead of really using the arms for a bit of momentum. Were you a runner?
You cross country? Did you not do cross country?
I could keep going. Forrest Gump it. Yeah, I could Forrest Gump it. Yeah, but in terms
long
of
distance,
like speed,
no pace,
accelerate. Oh jeez,
unpaced.
Oh god, no.
Marathon. Have you ever done a marathon?
No, I let myself down there. Really.
It's not too late now, Kenny.
No, you can still do it.
Is it too late?
Yeah, too late
for the knees.
Too late.
The knees and hips.
Yeah, motivation as well.
Motivation.
Yeah, motivation.
Not going to dress this up anyway.
Be honest.
Couldn't get the physical stuff. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We'll have a very busy show for you tomorrow and all week, of course. There's Cheltenham, there's Champions League, and there's everything else. It's a build-up to Ireland-England to look forward to. On tomorrow's show, Derek McNamara stats breakdown, Will O'Callaghan's hurling power rankings. We have John Duggan live on the first day of Cheltenham, and plenty more besides. Right now, the best of the Sunday paper review. Have a terrific day, it says here.
Very happy to say Dion Fanning from The Currency is here in the studio, and Fionn Davenport, travel journalist and owing to a crippling golf addiction, member of Golf Weekly, is here as well. You're both very welcome.
Hey Joe.
There is so much to get into on the Lineker coverage right across the board. I mean, one of the minor points is Eamon Dunphy's drive-by on per George Hamilton.
Who's the true victim of all of this, I think.
Well, apart from Eamon Dunphy himself, who someone managed to make him a victim of a sort of, a counterfactual world where he would be he would be in the BBC.
Well, he is asked at one stage, what would you say if they said, would you stand in for Lineker? I'd say, listen, guys, if you think Lineker was bad, wait till you have me. Said Dunphy to Niamh Horan here on the front page of the Sunday Independent.
It's too funny. It's too funny.
So this is imagine George Hamilton having his cornflakes this morning. Yeah. There's some classical music on the background. Life is good. You're George Hamilton. You're a living legend.
Lovely spring morning.
Yeah. Little Prokofiev playing in the background.
Indeed. So he's reading here. Eamon Dunphy is praising the solidarity. It's extraordinary, says Dunphy. The fact is that almost the entire soccer output of the BBC yesterday went off air. The results, everything. Almost nobody was prepared to work. Now, if I got into trouble with RTE on that kind of issue, the last person I'd expect to show solidarity with me would be George effing Hamilton.
I know.
He's done nothing.
What?
He's done nothing.
It too, Eamon.
in this notional controversy, Eamon is now. But that is a sign of a kind of overactive mind. All right. What would happen if I was in this situation, and who would support me? And who wouldn't? Who would fail to support me?
That the Sunday Independent didn't reach out to George Hamilton for comment shows they're not even trying.
Well, George could, so George could just say, in this fictional world, I would actually stand with Eamon.
Yes, I'd be the Ian Wright to Eamon's.
I like. He posits, like, if he was still broadcasting in this atmosphere, would I be able to sit on a sports panel in the current climate? Not a chance. If I'd said the things I'd said about Platini and Ronaldo and Jack Charlton, not a chance. Not a hope. And it's like, to which the only advice you can say is you should watch Sky Sports on a Monday night or after a big game on a Sunday, because that's exactly the kind of stuff they love to talk about.
Good point.
But it's as Dion says,
now he is
counterfactual view of it all.
Specifically, they're talking about RTE because he finishes that point by saying, look at what they have there now. So everybody's getting it really there.
Yeah. The interesting thing on that, there's a couple of things in it that are beyond just about Eamon Dunphy, amazingly. And he just mentions, Lineker's 1.5 million euro salary there, 1.3 million sterling, I think. And I actually was struck by that, by thinking that I thought it would be more. I actually think, when you look at what people in RTE are paid, and you look at it and you think, actually, for the BBC, for the reach they have, for the importance of Match of the Day, I actually thought he'd be on a bigger salary. So there's no great point in that, except to say that actually what the BBC get for Gary Lineker, I think is quite a lot. And it also, I think, you've touched on the BT are interested. What other broadcasters would think they could get for Gary Lineker at that price, or multiple of it, is quite a lot, and it's he's quite available in that sense. So there is no real, not jeopardy, because I think he's taken a stand, and there's obviously it's draining when you're in the middle of any kind of scandal like that or situation like that where people. And especially in a culture war situation, but it is not. He is in a very strong position, not just, but obviously because of the solidarity that was shown by, the extraordinary developments and the inability of the people at the BBC above the BBC Sports Department, who seemed to take this decision on Friday to actually anticipate what would happen. But he's in an incredibly strong position.
It does seem that way. This is a complex topic, and I would like to tell people what's in the papers as well as get your views on it. Just a jumping off point, and this perhaps is not the most important point, but it's interesting to get an array of views on just the actual tweet itself on Lineker's part. So, for instance, you have Eamon Dunphy and Barney Ronay agreeing on a point. Dunphy says here, if you start to compare nasty right-wing Tories to the Nazis in Germany, then what do you ever do if there really ever is fascism on the rise in the UK? And that's the problem. He went way over the top. It was a stupid thing to say because it simply isn't true. Dunphy wants Lineker back and supports Lineker, but he thought that the comparison with Germany was wrong. Barney Ronay agrees. Again, Ronay, and we'll come to this in due course, is highly critical of the BBC. But Barney Ronay does say, Lineker's key mistake was to throw Nazi Germany in there. However fine and nuanced Gary's understanding of the semiotics of National Socialist messaging in the years 1930 to 1940 is, it would be good generally if people could stop using Nazi Germany as a kind of bad things emoji. Better to explain and use detail. Save Nazi Germany. Keep it in your back pocket for those occasions when only Nazi Germany will do. Now, Martin Samuel argues, by contrast, in the Sunday Times. He says, Lineker's been derided for comparing government rhetoric around immigration to that of the Nazis, except he didn't mention the Nazis. He specifically referred to 1930s Germany. Also, he tweeted about a troubling escalation in language married to an aggressive policy. So there are various opinions.
Can I just... that
is not the key point.
Well, it's an important point, though.
It's an aspect.
It's an important point because I think there's a couple of elements here that I think people are really wrestling with and struggle with. And it's not just to do with Gary Lineker, but it's to do with the world today. And impartiality, like the BBC guidelines and impartiality say that even people outside the political sphere, if they're high profile, should try to avoid getting involved in things that are party political, right? That's one element of it. That works on the assumption, on the basis that we are living in a world where party politics is conducted broadly in kind of good faith. That there is, that people aren't going to come on and just lie. And I was watching the Laura Koonsberg show this morning, and she was saying that if she had tweeted this, she wasn't saying it in a way like she was criticising Gary Lineker. She's saying if she had tweeted this, she would have been out the door straight away because she's a political journalist. There is some more leeway to somebody like Gary Lineker. Now, somebody like Laura Koonsberg is under fire an awful lot of the time. She's under fire recently on her own show when somebody appeared on her show and said Boris Johnson lied, and she immediately put in the kind of standard rebuttal because you have to be impartial. That's quite a charge. It's not quite a charge to say Boris Johnson lied. It's a fact to say Boris Johnson lied. It is his entire career is built on lying. But the instinctive rebuttal and impartiality actually is a disservice to the truth then. So that's one aspect of it.
Yeah.
So then I think the thing about Germany and bringing, at what point do you start saying, and I get that argument, and people, there are people who have made that argument that Lineker shouldn't have brought this in. But there was an 83-year-old Holocaust survivor confronted Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, recently, and criticised her language on that very basis. Because when she uses words like invasion and swarm, it reminds her, she was a child in the Holocaust, and it reminds her of what the language that was used in 1930s Germany. So you can argue it from different points of view, but you're not saying when you say the language is like 1930s Germany that everything that is going to unfold exactly like 1930s Germany. But what you're saying is there is a demonization going on, and it is going on in bad faith, and it is going on alongside what aspects of, as somebody tweeted, like, okay, if you want to show you're not like 1930s Germany, maybe don't then attack the state broadcaster in the company and try and get somebody taken off the air for their comments. Maybe don't try and prorogue Parliament as this Conservative government did under the previous Prime Minister, or one of their previous Prime Ministers. Maybe watch out when newspapers refer to judges as the enemies of the people. So at some point, and this is the thing, like one of the articles criticising Lineker this week talked about Godwin's law, and the law being this, it was just a US lawyer came up with this idea in 2012 that everyone, like, if at some point on arguments in the internet somebody will always end up referencing the Nazis or Nazi Germany.
The longer it goes on, the
more likely this becomes. Now Godwin that is like ancient history. Godwin was talking about things like people arguing about the reduction in the size of Mars bars, and somehow it ends up we're talking about the Nazis. Not people talking about kids and women on boats and referring to them as invaders and a swarm. And Godwin himself in 2017 said, guys, the white supremacists in Charlottesville, go ahead, call them Nazis. Call them Nazis. And who was being impartial there? Donald Trump. Do you say, and this is where people can't actually get their heads around it, because party politics and the BBC guidelines are totally pointless, because party politics is not a protection against the erosion of democracy anymore. Because if you were the BBC and you were in America and you were saying, we must be impartial in party politics, you would say, well, we can't, when Donald Trump is saying the election is stolen, we have to treat that argument seriously, or else we're being biased. It's a lie. And this is what Gary Lineker's tweet actually exposes, that there is just no framework really that can actually really that it's not nuanced enough to deal with the situation as it stands, and then it just becomes something for the Conservative government to attack a broadcaster about, and I think Barney Ronay goes on to say that this is state interference and a dangerous. What they've done is pretty chilling, and that is the reality. So, because he says 1930s Germany, it doesn't mean that everything is going to unfold that we are dealing with it. But at the same time, you have to be alert.
Yes, the point Ronay makes on this whole keep politics out of sport argument as well, he succinctly says that the suspension of Lineker from BBC presenting duties and not Newsnight or Question Time, but the bloodless warm bath match of the day over a tweet sent on a Wednesday afternoon criticising government policy on migrants is frankly a jaw-dropping act of political intervention.
Joe Brawley picks up Dion's point in the main news section of the Sunday Independent today, where our basic humanity is under attack, our sense of goodness and integrity, our instinct to help and empathise. He talks about the Tories having adopted the US Republican Party playbook, the Murdoch Press, the Mail, GB News, Ital, helped them spread lies and create division. Obviously we're meant to be talking about the sports, but Gary Lineker has waded either cleverly or inadvertently into like a chess in 4 dimensions being played out by the Tory party, who, as soon as they announced this new bill, that isn't a law yet, but it's a proposed law, that even they acknowledge that it could be illegal. The UNHCR said it's a clear breach of the Refugee Convention. They have urged the British government to pursue, and I'm quoting, more humane and practical policy solutions. So is the end game here is that it seems like there's multiple threads being pursued here. One, it's the Tories being able to move the Overton window. So all of a sudden, the idea of just making all asylum seekers illegal and forever banning them from forever seeking asylum somehow becomes part of the mainstream of legitimate political debate, that it doesn't become like the most offensive thing you could ever think of. And so that's one. And two, like Gary Lineker's tweet this is meat to the Tories. They love this. And this is what Joe Brolly writes about. He goes, they absolutely love the idea because it allows them to kind of attack one of their favourite subjects, and that's the BBC itself. There's a thrill in it. There is a thrill, and this is a win-win for 36 Tory MPs have said, that suspending Gary Lineker isn't going far enough. Yeah. You need to apologise or just get rid of him altogether.
So Brolly argues that it's given them the perfect opportunity to spread hatred, division into every living room in the country, and the headline of his piece goes from this line: Lineker has helped them to go mainstream. He says, what we're seeing now in Britain, like America, is civil war without the guns. The Americans are just further down the road, which is a Chilean but probably a true thought. So he argues on the impartiality argument. He says that is a non-starter. It's okay for Lineker to devote much of the BBC's World Cup opener to criticisms of Qatar. Free speech is only free if you agree with them, he says, of the Tory government. It was interesting, I was listening to The Rest is Politics, and The Telegraph do something similar. The Telegraph have a poll just to see how this has gone down, and the majority of people support Lineker. Not in colossal numbers, so it's a YouGov Snap poll, Saturday night. The majority of the British public think the BBC was wrong, but only 53%. Just over a quarter think BBC were correct, and then 20% don't know. So it's 53% against 27%. If you're a Labour voter, 75% of Labour voters think Lineker is correct and the decision was wrong. 51% of Tory voters think that the BBC made the correct decision. On this bill, on the Rest is Politics podcast, there was some great numbers. So, and this goes to Brolly's point as well. So Lineker has created this massive storm. To use that US phrase, this bill plays very well with the base. So 83% of 2019 Conservative voters are very much in favour of this bill. Stop the boats is one of Rishi Sunak's big 5 promises. So 83% of Tory voters love this bill, according to The Rest is Politics. Gary Lineker has just given this bill more airtime than they could have possibly hoped for. I wonder will that backfire as the debate goes on across the week.
That's also true, but there's also a reason why they're amplifying it like they are, and why Lineker is amplified like he is, because in a country like Britain now, which is actually beginning to have great doubts about Brexit because of the realities of what's happening, the small boats is actually another consequence of Brexit. Because before Brexit, if you arrived in Britain, you could be returned to the country where you came from because of your membership of the EU. Since Brexit, people who make that journey know that once they get there, they can't be sent back anywhere. So, like, you might start asking, hold on a second, why has there been this big spike since 2020 in people crossing the channel? Oh, it's another thing that Brexit actually turned out not to be all the things that were promised. They've just Rishi Sunak has just agreed a deal, 500 million deal with Macron for Britain to give France 500 million to kind of rectify this. And this is because of of their post-Brexit situation.
Yeah.
So if you can make, as Fionn says, if you can make noise about Gary Lineker, or if you can make something about this play with the base, and again, this is the situation. This is why the language is important, because in a situation where the reasons for these things are actually something else, it is always the play of certain people in society to actually say, no, it is the vulnerable people you need to actually blame for this.
Yeah.
They're the people you should be threatened by, not the people who led this or who created this situation.
Because, and then just, I mean, it's an interesting one to the Telegraph's own point about playing well with the base. I saw there was like one of these quick polls done where an overwhelming majority of people, when you frame the question as do you support the right of people to enter illegally into the country? The vast majority go, well, no, I don't. But if you were to frame a question and say, do you agree that children, asylum seeker children, should be imprisoned and then deported back to wherever? Like you wouldn't find the same kind of meaty support and favour. And so in the end, it feels that Lineker is the canary in the coal mine for something entirely way above him and way beyond anything to do with like freedom of speech even. It's to do with the Tories being able to say, once they have to water down this bill, and the likelihood is they will, they can say, well, you know, we're tough on asylum seekers, we're tough on illegal entries, but, you know, all the wokerati, they're the ones that are kind of stopping us from. And this ultimately, and it is worth bearing in mind, is that the Tories are playing horribly in the national polls, that Labour are overwhelmingly ahead of them. So there's a huge lot going on. And look, as I said, Gary Lineker either wades cleverly into this or inadvertently.
You see, there was that great question on Question Time the other night where a guy in the audience made the point they can't run on the basis of their record, they can't run on their personalities, so they're left with division, hatred, fear. And
well, the culture wars was the thing they had people under Boris Johnson. There were people. There was a whole policy unit in Downing Street designed just to kind of foment the culture wars, and this is what they're doing. And Martin Samuel piece today, and it is actually, important because when you read the headline on it, it is BBC's treatment of Gary Lineker has given football its Colin Kaepernick moment. And you kind of think, because of this has got so ridiculous, you kind of think that's really stretching it.
I think so.
But then when you look at what it's actually about, is it really stretching it? Is it really stretching it to say that this is an important issue that people are actually right to take a stand over? That's the thing.
I suppose I'm uncomfortable with that comparison because Kaepernick's career went up in flames, whereas Gary Lineker may have to choose between going back to the BBC for 1.3 million or taking a $5 million deal.
But in elsewhere. As regards taking that's fair enough. But in regards taking a stand, there is. It's not just a stand about I want to be. I want to be free. It's not a stand over should I be free just to tweet what I like.
Yes.
It's what he's tweeting about.
Yes.
So that is important. And there's just, in Samuel piece he does say on our old friend Impartiality that he talks about how draconian the BBC rules are. And he said other BBC staff were issued with instructions not to attend anti-Donald Trump rallies or Black Lives Matter demonstrations, even in an unidentified private capacity. Yet, what contravenes BBC policy in supporting anti-racism? Must the BBC see both sides of it for the sake of balance? That racism's got its good points, and this should also be reflected. There's a kind of notion that everyone's opinion is equally valid, says Dara O'Brien, the comedian. My arse, a bloke who's a professor of dentistry for 40 years, does not have a debate with some idiot who removes his teeth with a string and a door. Now, the problem is that the idiot with the string and the door in Britain is in government.
Yeah, and certainly gets equal minutes time on air. Just to give you a sense of the Telegraph, because we're probably coming at this from a viewpoint. Sir John Whittingdale, who is of the Conservative family and is a former Secretary of State for Culture and Media. So he says BBC had no choice but to suspend Lineker. He said the row is not about the right to free speech. It is accepting, however, that extremely paid employment from the BBC means that there will be limitations on the exercise of that right. He said impartiality, one of the core principles of the BBC. He says the BBC's guidance on social media says some employees who are not journalists still have additional responsibility because of their profile. Yeah. And he says as their highest paid presenter, Lineker falls into that category. And he also talks about the politics at play here. So he says there's been a lot of talk of Richard Sharp, the chairman, and his links with Boris Johnson. He says there's nothing new about the non-executive chairman or board members having a political allegiance. He says a former Labour cabinet minister, Joel Barnett, served as vice chairman of the governors for 7 years, and Chris Pattern, a former Conservative cabinet minister, chaired the BBC Trust for 4 years from 2011. So that was his take on things. There's another piece, for instance, Stephen Pollard. Good riddance to virtue signalling football pundits.
I think if you use the word woke or virtue signalling,
you've lost. It's the new Godwin's law. All football, no punditry. The greatest irony of this situation is we could end up with a much better match of the day than we're used to.
Like last night's.
The BBC's obsession with punditry rather than actual sport has long been a blight on its coverage. Too often, it's simply embarrassing to watch, a TV version of dad dancing. So I usually record match of the day and I fast forward through the so-called analysis.
I don't know if you ever chance upon GB News.
I only see clips. I can't get it on my...
So last night they had alternative match of the day.
I did see that.
And the co-host Patrick Christie's was asked for his thought on the game between Leeds United and Brighton, to which his answer, which I thought... he said, Brighton I've never been to, though I imagine that Gary Lineker would quite like Brighton because it's full of rainbow flags and woke people.
Did see that clip.
And then Dolan, the co-host, replies, I think that's a fair point, the tofu-eating wokerati.
That is good, though. I would maybe... There's certain Match of the Day pundits that I think put those guys on instead of ahead of.
It's very depressing where we are, isn't it?
It's terribly depressing.
That point of Brolly's that the UK is just a touch behind America, but I mean, the trends will continue and probably speed up and become further radicalised.
Interestingly, because the two newspapers that are really kind of pushing the anti-BBC agenda are the Mail and the Telegraph. That's traditionally it. But in Rob Draper, Joe Bernstein and Mike Keegan in their Football won the BBC nil on page 74 of the Mail is generally quite sympathetic towards BBC support of Lineker.
There does generally seem to be
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.